say anything about, email or shop or care about the highway construction?
When did it come, when did she send it? I'm doing well, yourself, Mr. Mayor?
You guys are on TV because it's 60.
Oh, my God. My God. That was just, that's all. Cognac. Yeah, something like that.
That's
Well,
class
I'm not,
three.
I'm not.
That class, Jared,
One after?
one on behind you is correct.
You also
Yeah, I got 6.3 on that. That was fast, that was okay.
I have 64, but.
Oh, yeah, this is one.
Okay.
Jim.
No, because that was done way before we got on. We just got a new seat. We didn't impose a new condition. What about, I mean, sure. It's not really that.
Say again?
The,
Accessory building.
yeah. What road is, what is it? Oh, the National Lebanon Bridge, yeah.
Everything is right.
Ah. That's the only reason I thought.
Our board meeting, that's supposed to start.
We'll have to come back into this. I mean, have you
During the meeting, when I asked you a question,
that was part of the.
is there any way we can tell residents that we're starting to work on highway deals?
Well, I know, well, look up, let's ask Carl.
That's it.
That's
Is that all
good.
right?
Yeah, that's all right.
Can you do a conference call tomorrow? Morning?
No, that's nice.
I can do it anytime, I can't earn as long as my.
Later on in the morning, I've got an 8:30 and a 9 o'clock, and I will be done till 10:30.
What time? Sure.
It's just what's on me and you, or maybe, and
Well,
Andy.
how about before we get in? Andy's already. Is he drafted? What? I can't. Well, but I can't tell you whether or not I'll be available. I didn't. Well, I just. What's that?
what is it regarding?
$400,000 credit for a private thing.
Oh, okay. I'll take it.
Yeah, what is the subdivision? I don't know, but the subdivision is the road.
You say no,
Well, we're gonna welcome you, like, Katie's like, you can say, look, Katie, did you know?
Trying to get something out to the public. It's not on the agenda.
This is like,
Carl. Schlesman.
Schleesman. What's your name?
I before E except after C.
Actually, you should just look at the spelling.
I looked at, I said that to a teacher and she threw me out of class. Just kidding.
Oh, the hallway was high. That was the high we was. I thought.
All to yourself, yeah? Yeah.
First day of class, I was in. Rest of the time was in the hallway.
Really? Oh, our masks.
Are you Karen?
Yeah, I'll be on there.
Okay.
Sure. Do you have an extra mask?
Are they mandatory?
According to our governor there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then forget it.
Yeah, there you go.
We're not
There you go.
the police here, we just, I don't want any more.
The dictator.
People are still doing what they want.
If you think it's a good idea, wear one.
Well, yeah, take into account all the information
plants or not, I prefer not.
For me personally,
I found out about hypercapnia. I found out about hypercapnia, so I decided, oh, I didn't need one, Karen, you know.
Did you want a body?
Yeah,
I'll give you a whole box.
I didn't really need one, but it's not mandatory. Is it mandatory?
I don't know, is it mandatory?
Evers says it is.
I'm not gonna make you put it on.
All right,
This year,
okay.
it's not for
Okay.
CDs.
Evers doesn't know how to spell hypercapnia, so.
Are we live?
Yes, we are live.
Well, good, hope he's online.
The worst is trying to get a drink of water.
Worst is wearing glasses.
Well, that too, I
Like somebody
Yeah.
found out at the last meeting. Somebody getting insulators.
Jamie, did Pat tell you she's got one?
Hmm?
Did Pat tell you she's got one?
Yeah.
And she's very excited?
Yeah, cool, good.
Yeah, they say if you put a tissue, you're safe at work. Didn't like that. Yeah, right about the nose.
Tissue?
Like a Kleenex.
Well, he
I
probably
just
needs,
took one and
I don't
rolled it
know,
up.
if you're not selling them, then
If you get one with a metal that pinches together, it's not.
Yeah, this is, my wife put a pipe in there.
Oh, really?
So I just kind of pinch it together. She's like, rolled it, sewed it tight.
Yeah, that was smart.
Well, it's worked for a minute.
About 30 seconds. Don't envy.
Yeah, I know.
unless he's not telling us.
Personally, I think it was just, that's all. Mic check.
Yes.
All right, well. Slice. Call it the order. Good evening. We'll call the Village of Vernon Plan Commission meeting to order. Today is August 12th. We'll call it to order with the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We'll have a roll call and open meeting law compliance check.
President Carl Fortner,
Present.
Trustee Commissioner Fred Mahalik,
Present.
Commissioner Dan Noack,
Present.
Commissioner Jamie Schleisman.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, note for the, Mr. President, note for the record that you do have a quorum of your Plan Commission. Also note for the record that Trustee Commissioner Jim Solani has an excused absence. Also note for the record that our zoning administrator and planning administrator, Jamie, oh my God, he is here. I'm sorry, 5 o'clock in the morning till 10:30 last night, long night.
You've had 2 days, you know?
Mr. President and board members, you're in full compliance with the open meetings law. The agenda was posted inside and outside the Vernon Town Hall, to the website, to the media. You are in full compliance with the open meetings law.
Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Schleisman, Jamie. And I'm glad to have you on board. And I know you've had a history of service in your former town that you resided in, and including Plan Commission, and you've served on our Board of Appeals, and earlier this year, we actually had a case. So welcome.
As part of your introduction, I just want to mention to the residents that construction is beginning this week on County Trunk ES for the bridge over the Fox River.
Not on the agenda, but we'll
Thank you.
get into our agenda. So welcome, and thank you for that announcement, and we'll get started with the very first item, and we'll get going here. It is, on the agenda, it's a rescission of a former Town of Vernon Plan Commission action regarding a final certified survey map. As a former town, we are subject to extraterritorial zoning and plat review, and this is one of those items that was sent to the city of Waukesha for review and sat there and sat there and sat there. And now that we're a village, it's come back to be rescinded and reapproved or recommend for approval. So that's why it's on the agenda. Sean, if you want to, just tee it up. I know we
Yeah.
have a new member, so just,
This was basically, the CSM was to combine lots 9 and 10 within the Millbrook Village subdivision. That was recorded in 1978. The petitioner owns both lots. Lot 9, the westernmost lot, is currently vacant. Lot 10 includes the residence. This was approved in July 2019 by the town of Vernon, pending Waukesha County and extraterritorial approval. So it's already been through us. We had a couple of conditions. They've since satisfied every condition that was required as part of the meeting. So our surveyor and I do not have any conditions. The only conditions that would be tied to this would be to satisfy any other concerns that you might have tonight, and then payment of any outstanding fees if there are any. And so that's it. If you have questions, be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I don't really have much to add.
And Mr. President, note for the record that there are no outstanding fees in regards to any of the petitioner's requests previously, all paid in full.
all right. So what we need to do is do this very carefully. And if there's is there any questions or discussions? Otherwise, I'll try and make a motion that we'll try and do it as carefully as possible. So I will make a motion to rescind the Town of Vernon Plan Commission action to recommend to the Town of Vernon Town Board to approve the final survey map of David Sparks located at W257S 6755 Fox Court, and and have the Village of Vernon Plan Commission recommend conditional approval, conditions being as stated in the staff review report dated August, I guess it's 11/2020, of the final certified survey map for David Sparks located at W257S 6755 Fox Court.
I'll second that motion. That was a motion, correct?
That was a motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Letter B, conceptual survey, certified survey map for Mr. Dan Porter for the property located at S102 W26107 Maple Avenue. Mr. Porter.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, please state your name and address for the record.
My home address or the address of the property in question?
The address of the property in question is fine.
Daniel Porter, S102 West 26107 Maple Avenue in Mukwonago, Wisconsin 53149.
Okay, and the property is owned owned by your LLC, or that you're a member
Yes,
of or a
correct,
manager of?
correct, correct. It's my 2 aunts and 3 brothers and myself own it all together.
Mr. President, could I ask you to repeat the address? It's different than what's
Is
on the
it?
review.
Then I may have misspoke.
Okay.
All right.
Pardon me?
It is,
You got the 102, right?
yeah, it's S102 W26107, I believe is what it is.
Is what it is. On your application, it's 220.
Oh, well, that's my home address. I'm the next house down the road.
Okay, so,
So the property is W26107.
Yes.
I think, Sean, your report says it's 105.
Right.
Okay, I
Well,
can,
it's a duplex, essentially. So there's upstairs and a downstairs to it.
Oh,
It's been that way my whole life, since before I was born. My uncle lived upstairs and I lived downstairs.
oh,
with
so
my
there's 2
family.
addresses is what you're saying?
There's 2 addresses
Oh,
with
okay.
that, and then my
What-
address, I'm the next house down the road, and that's my address, so, because I didn't know which address, you know, did you want my address as the managing member, property address? So,
Sean, what address are you using?
Well, I was using 105, but I mean,
Yes.
we could say.
105 or
It's the
107?
the same property
No, no,
regardless.
just so I
maybe just put
know.
a slash, you know,
Should have both
right?
on
Should have
there,
both,
yeah.
right? That's easy enough to fix.
Sure, I can certainly do that.
So it'll be 26-105/107.
Correct,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay, Sean, why don't you,
Yeah,
if you
just
could,
give
please kick us off, and then
Brief.
if we have questions for Mr. Porter, we can
Yeah.
get those out of the way.
So what the petitioner's asking for is just conceptual review of the CSM. What he wants to do, or what they want to do, is just create one 5-acre lot that's adjacent to Maple Avenue. The property that would be divided includes the existing home, some farmland, a little bit of isolated natural resource area, and then as part of larger holdings that includes land both north across Maple Avenue as well as south of Maple Avenue as well. The zoning of the property is currently RRD5, and just a little bit of background. That allows lot sizes as small as 1 acre. You need a minimum lot width of 150 feet. The overall density can't exceed 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres. Any arrangement of land, especially in regard to preservation of land, would have to be approved by the Plan Commission. Anything done by a subdivision plat has to be done by conservation design. And that when you start to develop lots, especially when they're smaller than 5 acres, if they were smaller than 5 acres, you have to know basically where the density goes, where the remaining development rights would go and what would be left. In this case, though, since they're basically dividing off a 5-acre parcel and the density is 1 unit per 5 acres maximum, it's basically set aside already. This one lot would meet the density requirements, and then the remaining parcel would also meet the density requirements. And then finally, if this was developed as a subdivision plat, which is not being proposed as, the zoning would require that access would be from internal roads, not from outside roads. But in this case, because it's a CSM, access could be granted from Maple Avenue.
Sean, I have a question.
Yeah.
This is not a rezoning
Correct.
application, right? Okay.
Just conceptual on a division of,
Okay.
just splitting, making one lot.
All right.
So, as I mentioned before, there was some past land divisions from this property. Across the street from Maple Avenue, back in 2015, there was a land division that created 3.05 acre lot. I'm sorry, 3.4 acre lot, and then just south of the proposed land division, south of Maple Avenue, in 1996, there was a division of a lot, which is kind of, it's a landlocked parcel. There was an exemption, there was a waiver that was granted from Waukesha County at the time, I believe, and that particular lot gets access to Maple Avenue through through an easement, an access easement, a 33-foot access easement to Maple. The whole property, once this is divided, we'd be left with about 70 acres to the north, including land across Maple, and then a remnant of about 35 acres to the south. Our land division ordinance requires that anything that's 40 acres or less requires the whole thing to be surveyed as part of a certified survey map. We have granted waivers for this in the past, and that's something that have to be considered as part of the final certified survey map. So you should provide direction to the petitioner tonight on whether or not that is going to be required. As I mentioned, there's some isolated natural resource areas that encompass a portion of the property. We'd ask that the standard notes be included for preservation of the isolated natural resource area as part of the final certified survey map. And then I mentioned the access easement that serves the lot further to the south. That would remain the westernmost lot line of the proposed lot, would butt up against that access easement. So if the remainder of the property was ever further developed in the future, a subdivision or otherwise, that location, that driveway location still remains. That could be the location of a future road if needed to get back to the remainder of the property. The only last thing I'd like to mention is that, the 5-acre, the creation of the 5-acre plot and the remaining acreage abides by the density requirement, but the Plan Commission should consider whether or not we need to add specific restrictions or specific notes to the lot that's created that basically says, hey, this is a 5-acre lot. You're not gonna get any more divisions of this lot within the zoning district, as we move forward. If it's rezoned to some other district in the future, let's say the plan changes for the area, our comp plan changes, and this suddenly becomes rural residential where 1-acre lots are allowed, and they rezoned it, that would be a different story. But under the current zoning, the current plan, you should consider whether a restriction needs to be added to that 5-acre lot, just to make sure that there's no confusion about where the density is going and what development rates remain. So that's all I have. If you have questions for me or
So there's already a home on it, a house on it,
it's already a house.
and it's already RRD 5, which is rural residential, so it's consistent with our master plan,
It is.
consistent with zoning.
Yeah, and the location of the house makes sense for a split too. Even though the easternmost property line wouldn't extend all the way to the boundaries of the property, it doesn't make a lot of difference in my mind because that's all isolated natural resource anyways, and if this was developed as a subdivision, that area would be preserved, and so even though it's a little bit of a remnant that's irregularly shaped to the east of the proposed lot, it's not a concern in my mind because it'll be preserved one way or the other if and when this ever gets developed.
Sean, is that land permanently a reserve, or is that one of those things where it could be withdrawn?
Well, it's designated as isolated natural resource area by Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission.
Okay.
Our comprehensive plan and our zoning ordinance requires those to be preserved in some capacity.
It's fine.
The property, the acreage to the east is what you're saying.
There's basically a strip of land to the east that they still own, that would be to the east of their lot. That will be an isolated natural resource area, so it's a weird shape, it'll never be a lot. It's gonna be preserved remnant land left over, no matter how this develops.
But the rest, when you say the rest of the property, you mean this piece here, right? And this is what you're talking about,
Which way is up on that one?
oops, I should show it to you like
Top of the
this.
paper.
Sorry.
So show me again.
Yeah, so this is the environmental corridor piece you're talking
The
about.
isolated natural
Yeah,
resource
all right,
area.
sorry,
yeah. Yep,
I misspoke, isolated net,
yeah.
yeah. And this is the rest of their
On
property.
the south of Maple, they also have
The south.
property to the north of Maple.
There's this piece here and this piece.
That's correct.
Yep. Right, so a future subdivision, let's say, they could come here.
Coming off that driveway.
You could build a road and have lots,
Potentially.
potential.
Developing underneath RRD 5, you have to preserve a certain amount of land, it's gotta be held in perpetuity and common. It would include the isolated natural resource area remnant and some other piece of land. So the point is that in RRD 5, I think the attorney, our village attorney made this point, is that in many communities that use this district to govern land, require a master plan. It doesn't state so specifically, but depending on where the lot's located, you might want to see a master plan and make sure that it can still be developed in the future in a way that makes sense. But again, because of the location of this particular lot, because of the location of where the new road would come in, I don't necessarily see that as something that would be necessary.
Who owns this piece of this one?
We do.
It's part of the
We
same.
own everything around there.
Yep, okay. So you're my neighbor.
And what?
So you're one of my neighbors.
I am? Are you in Sand Hill Ridge?
Yep,
Oh, okay, so, yeah, we own up, right up to that.
right,
In fact, you've probably seen my wife and I walking the dog through your
okay.
subdivision.
Well, we'll try to say hi next
Yeah,
time. So we're looking for direction and,
Direction, a couple things. One, direction on if you know, the location of the lot and what's being proposed makes sense and to move forward, and whether or not you would be of the mind to grant a waiver so that the whole property wouldn't need to be surveyed as part of this.
but obviously there'd be a survey of the lot.
Well, there'd be a
Become
survey
a-
of the 5-acre
Or the
lot,
5 acre, the,
correct.
but not the remaining.
Yeah, when I had my house, which is that 3.4 acre that you were discussing, that was from my house. I surveyed the part coming off, but Waukesha, waived having to have the whole property surveyed, because it gets quite expensive for somebody to tramp around a big piece of property like that trying to survey it.
And then the last thing to consider is whether or not you'd expect a note on the CSM to the effect that Lot 1 wouldn't be further subdivided, no remaining development rights on Lot 1 until such time it would be rezoned, that would allow it.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that. I think that's,
Sure.
we
Yeah,
typically do that.
I'm fine with that. I have no intention of, the whole idea is, nobody wants the house. Nobody wants to live in it, nobody wants to do anything with it, so we're looking to divide the land off and find somebody who's interested in buying the
buying,
land and the house, you know.
There seems to be some distance between the center line of that, you're probably the old driveway there, that goes back to the south, and the lot line. Is that, do we know what that dimension is? Is that 33 feet, or?
I'm not following, could you repeat that, Dan?
Oh, there's a driveway just to the west of this that goes back
Right,
to
right.
another.
Yeah, the easement, you're
Right.
talking about the easement that runs along the west edge of the proposed piece?
Right. How far is it from that lot line to that center line of that drive, or?
Oh, it would be 17 or just 16 and a half feet. or
16 and a
so.
half feet, right. I would have the proposed lot come right up to the edge of the easement.
Yeah.
Okay,
This drawing that was provided, it shows 5.06 acres. This is fairly rough. It's gonna be fine tuned as it comes back, so it's probably not exactly right.
No, I was on the county's website drawing this out.
Trying to draw a 5 acre lot. the best
Right,
you could,
exactly.
so if there ever were a road put in that area, they wouldn't have to take anything off of this proposed lot here now, right? That,
No, it would expand to the west.
Okay.
It would basically,
Do we need to make that as a condition that the lot line, because you mentioned that, I mean, it's just a drawing, it's conceptual. The final would have to be, to your point, Dan, 16 and at least 16 and a half feet from the center line of the existing
well,
driveway.
it's
Well,
stated as it'll be outside of the easement.
right,
Okay,
right.
okay, so what's the, okay, maybe back up.
So we
What-
maintain the 5 acres, I guess,
Right.
if the road ever goes in there, and
Right.
Right,
so.
It wouldn't cut into this, it would just move west.
so the easement is 33 feet
Correct.
already,
Right.
okay.
So if
So
it was
there's a
if it was gonna
recorded
become a
easement,
road,
there's a
there'd be another
recorded easement on the deed of 33 feet.
it'd be additional 33 feet for 66 feet for right-of-way, and then the new road would be constructed. And that may never even happen, I mean, depending on,
Yeah, nobody has a crystal ball.
but there's a good place for a new road if it ever occurs.
Yeah, just to the west.
Right.
And
Because you save 33 feet, and you could put another 33 to the,
Yeah,
west end,
I'm
if-
in agreement with that. The whole reason for going up to the easement was I didn't want a thin strip of land that we owned now that, what can you do with?
Right,
Can't do anything.
Right.
right.
yeah, that wouldn't make any sense.
So why exactly 5 acres? What is the thought behind that?
To fit within the village's requirements.
You could go bigger if you wanted to.
I could go bigger, but the other part, I personally wanted to go up to the lot
On
to
the
the
east?
east, but the other partners didn't want to do that.
Okay. And so by leaving it at 5 acres, you can then use that land to the east, that strip, as part of your calculation for, you know, that can
Sure.
count towards your open space in the
Sure.
future if this ever gets developed as
Mhm.
a subdivision.
But if you did go to the east, wouldn't you maintain some of that agricultural cropland that looks like it's?
Well, that isn't very good cropland to begin with.
Oh,
It grows
okay.
rocks pretty good, but that's. And so what I was trying to do, I wanted to run the lot all the way back to the neighbor's lot back there, again, so I don't have a narrow strip
Right,
back there.
okay.
I'd sooner have this strip along the road than, you know, buried in the
Okay.
back somewhere.
We'll take your word for it.
Beyond that, the farmer that's renting it right now, he has to cross over that easement with his equipment, and I'm afraid one day he may tear up something and then the homeowner will complain because it's blacktop right now, so.
And there's no accessory buildings hidden back in the trees that would be too close to the new lot line?
No, there's nothing back there.
What about the waiver as far as the whole property being surveyed? I guess I'm not overly concerned about that either,
Right.
so.
I suspect the reason it's in the ordinances in terms of requiring it normally is so that, you know, you have full leeway to require anything that you possibly need. I know since my time here, we've granted waiver from it many, many times where it doesn't really impact the rest of the property.
Well, when the property's that size, you know, it doesn't pay to have the whole thing done.
Right. And this isn't the end-all, be-all development for this property, so
Right.
if and when it ever gets further developed, there's gonna be a full extensive survey done for them. We know he's got at least enough to create a 5-acre lot here, there's not a, you know, there's no confusion there.
Well, I would make a motion that the village,
No formal action, yeah.
Oh, we don't need a
Just
motion
direction
to-
on those.
Just
few
direction.
items.
accept it, and
Yeah, so we could by consensus or around the table just quickly. Um, As far as direction as to, the 5 acres has kind of conceptually laid out, is there any dissent or
no problem there.
regarding that? No, so I think we can give you directions there. As far as the direction on getting the entire piece of property surveyed, is there any reason why we should do it, let's put it that way? Or
Don't we need
require
a
any?
motion on that, Sean? or
No, because we'll
official
take
action?
formal action on the waiver next time, but it's just so that he knows to tell the surveyor, hey, don't bother doing the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
We'll formally request the waiver when he brings it in next
All right.
time, but there's no action items tonight.
So I see consensus on, you know, having that waiver in place, or at least favorably considering it, let's say, in formal action when you come in. And as deed restriction, I'm always in favor of that, particularly when the property is going to be sold, or likely to be sold, so that the people buying it know what they're buying, and,
Sure.
you know, everybody's above board here,
I
so.
agree.
So petitioner agrees with that. I think our direction is to go ahead and do that. What else do we need to give direction on, Sean?
I believe that's it. Do you have a copy of the staff report?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
So what's your timetable on this, Mr. Porter? Do you know?
I will be trying to contact a surveyor tomorrow and see when I can get it done, so, as soon as possible.
Get our pretty pictures drawn up, and
I'm getting tired of mowing the lawn up there, so.
you need a better
Welcome to the
track.
club.
Yeah,
Or if you need our checklist for your surveyor, just let me know. I'll email that.
okay, all right, good. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
For coming in. Next item up, it's not a conceptual survey map, but a conceptual land division for Mr. Bill Bruss for the property located at S88 W25707 Edgewood Avenue. Mr. Bruss, could you state your name and address for the record? Thank you.
William Bruss, and like the last gentleman, I've got 3 addresses, so
Okay.
I'll give you my most used one, South 88, West 25707, Edgewood. And by the way, if I happen to cough, I have hay fever, why somebody that has a horse farm would, or has hay fever would buy a horse farm? No clue. Ask myself that every year.
My allergies are killing me too, and in today's day and age, if you cough, everybody gives you like a dirty look.
That's why I mentioned it, yeah. I was doing hay last night.
Oh.
Okay, Sean, can you kick us off on this one?
Sure. So this is a 33-plus acre property on Edgewood. This is also zoned, same as the last one, is RRD5. This particular property has, so it's some village zoning, some shoreline floodland zoning, there's environmental corridor, there's wetland, high groundwater, floodplain overlays, and hydric soils. It's a challenging piece of property. What currently exists out there is a commercial stable that the petitioner operates. Offers horse boarding, training, riding lessons, but also included on the property are 2 existing single-family homes. The stable itself operates under a conditional use permit that was issued by Waukesha County originally and then updated again in 1999. I believe that's the last time it was updated. It currently allows a maximum of 44 horses, a 100-foot by 100-foot addition to the existing equestrian center, and then other improvements. So that all exists on the property today. The conditional use permit itself allowed the construction of the second single-family home. So that's how the second single-family home was essentially approved, because the conditional use permit allowed it. But there was restrictions that said both residences on the property had to be occupied by a family, one person of which is considered a full-time employee at the boarding and equestrian center operation, and that is the current status today. If and when the commercial stable ever terminates, the conditional use permit stipulated that one of the residents must be removed or divided from the property on a parcel conforming to the zoning ordinance, okay? So, as I mentioned before, it's a challenging property. The petitioner's looking at a couple different options for whether it's a 1 lot, 2 lot, or a number of lots, and is just hoping to get some feedback from the Plan Commission in terms of a direction that they might choose to go in the future when this happens. So 2 options that were presented as part of the packet. Option 1, what I'm calling option 1, it's not labeled as option 1, shows basically the creation of 2 new lots. And that each of the 2 lots would be for both of the existing homes that exist on the property today. So in this case, the 2 lots would be created for the existing homes, and the commercial stable is shown as continuing. Whether that would be in perpetuity or not, I'm not sure, but that's the way the concept shows it. Neither of the 2 new lots for the existing homes that are created would have access to road frontage, public road frontage. And so that's a requirement of our land division ordinance. And so they would need a waiver from Section 200-37C of the Land Division Ordinance if this approach was taken. In addition, in this option, if the commercial stable would remain, the conditional use permit would need to be modified to change the area of the lot. And so now it's 33.6 acres. That conditional use would only apply to the remaining parcel, and so it would need to be modified to drop the acreage for that. In option 2, this is a little more comprehensive development approach to the property. This shows creation of 7 new lots and a public road that would access Edgewood with a cul-de-sac that would come back and hit all the lots. Right now, our current land division ordinance only allows a cul-de-sac up to 600 feet in length, but does allow waivers to be granted, but only up to 1,200 lineal feet. So in any case, this option would need to be tweaked as it's 300 feet longer than our land division ordinance would allow, even under a waiver from the ordinance itself. Based on the density, based on the lot size and the rural residential density that allows 5 units per acre, 5 acres for each dwelling units required. In reality, it only allows up to 6 lots to be created on the property, 6 homes. The concept is showing 7, so that would need to be modified. In any case, as I mentioned before, the property includes wetlands, environmental corridors. We do have provisions in our ordinance. The shoreline floodland ordinance also has provisions where you can and can't put homes and what you can disturb in terms of area. It looks like in all cases that the new homes are being located outside of the environmental corridor, so that isn't an issue in terms of disturbance of the environmental corridor itself. Just like the last land division that just came before us, they would we need to determine whether or not a waiver would be granted for surveying the entire parcel if in fact we approved say, 2 lots created or 1 lot would be created, whether or not the entire property would need to be surveyed. As I mentioned before, cul-de-sac waiver would need to be granted for the subdivision option for the 6 lots that would be created. This is an area also that the floodplain maps are changing. FEMA has released some draft floodplain maps for this area that are more accurate than they were before, but the base flood elevation has not been finalized, so the maps are not yet final, so we don't quite yet know exactly where the floodplain is going to be. It's fairly extensive on the property, but it has shrunk. So originally what was being shown on the original maps has changed and has decreased based on the draft maps. So we can expect it to decrease in some extent. However, if any development happens before those maps are finalized and the base flood elevation is finalized, the petitioner would have to do his own study, hire a professional to do a study, a hydraulic and hydrological study that shows the exact base flood elevation, so we can make sure that any new building site would be outside of the floodplain. So I don't know what the timing is like, but that's something to keep in mind. In the option that creates the multiple lots, the 6 or 7 lots, that would also require Waukesha County Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Review. I would note that the concept that was shown does not show a specific area for stormwater management, but that would be required. In addition, rural residential, RRD5, as mentioned before, when you do a subdivision, requires an internal road, which is being provided, but it also requires some preservation of open space, and that's not designated on this plan, and that's something that will need to be designated as well. And that's all I have at this time.
In looking at the drawings that have been provided, how do you get from lots 1 and 2 over to 4, 5, and 6?
It would have to be an easement through the main property that would come from Edgewood back through the one property, through the nearest property to the road, and then back to the far property. So it would be all through easement. Neither one would have access to Edgewood itself.
Are you talking about the first one or the second one? I'm not sure which drawing are you talking
The
about?
first 2 lots.
The one that creates
First
two
two,
lots.
Just the 2 lots?
Right.
Right.
So that would be by access easement.
So a shared driveway, is that what we're saying?
A shared driveway that comes back through, cuts through the first property and then ends up at the furthest back residence.
But
as
it's
well.
only two lots on the driveway.
Correct. The barn, I'm sorry, the commercial stable would also share that driveway entrance, and it would basically then jut off and then serve that. So it would serve all 3 properties essentially, that driveway.
And is that a bridge then across that water?
Yes.
Yes, there's a
Okay,
bridge on the existing driveway now. It's been there
Okay.
forever.
And
Oh, there already is one. Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's, we have,
who's responsible for that bridge, the property owner?
yes.
So obviously the challenging thing to think about here is creating lots that are not on a public right of way. It's not currently permitted, and I don't know necessarily if, I don't know the last time, if ever, a waiver was granted for that in Vernon. We know it's been done when the county was more in charge for the one we just talked about, the one back in 1999 that was created off of Maple that was set back further. So it's happened in the past in Vernon for whatever reason. The idea just a little more background about this one. There was an existing home on the property. The second house was built as part of the conditional use, which stipulated that it had to be divided. If the commercial stable ever terminated, it has to be either demolished, removed, or divided off in accordance with the zoning ordinance. And so this isn't necessarily a zoning issue. This is more of a land division issue. But I'm not saying it necessarily means you have to grant access to a lot that's not on a public right-of-way, but it's just some more background information to consider. when these homes were built.
What year was the second home built?
Did you build the second home?
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
What year was that?
2002.
So the conditional use permit was issued by Waukesha County, the update to allow the home, and then Vernon itself approved the location of the home and then issued the building permit for the home based on that.
So how is the conditional use affected by if we did a two-lot division here? Does that have to be tied to that property, the ownership, or?
We'd modify the conditional use permit to only apply to the remnant parcel that would have the stable on it.
But part of that conditional use required the
Yes,
operator.
we would remove those lines
own-
that talked
to
about the
live there,
homes. Those homes
basically.
wouldn't be on the property anymore.
Right, but then who's gonna, but the conditional use says someone has to live there to take care of the horses, basically. Live on the premise, live
Well,
on,
it
in one
doesn't
of the
say,
homes,
it doesn't say
right?
the purpose is to take care of the horses. The purpose is they allowed a second home on the property, which is abnormal,
Right,
with the stipulation that whoever lives there has to work at the,
okay.
like farmhousing, right?
But
So-
we're taking a conditional use and we're turning it into a use by right then, or that,
It would remain a conditional use.
can you have a conditional use on a property that doesn't have a principal use?
The principal use would be the stable. Commercial stables are allowable conditional use in RRD 5.
You know, it's,
They don't need
I-
a home, they don't need a home to exist. Commercial stables can operate independently.
but you have to cross
wait, wait.
residential property to get to it.
You would not have to cross residential property to get to it. The driveway, if you look at the option with the two lots created, you can see it's sort of a curved line that comes. There's another
Is that gonna
little
be
bridge.
improved for access, like for fire equipment? Is that,
That's already the access, part of the access back there.
Russ Court?
Bruss Court, is that what you
Nope.
said?
It's all a driveway coming through now.
that's just like a farm road there, isn't it?
Okay.
There's the main driveway that comes up the west side. There's a lane that we call it, that we run the horses down, that exists now,
Right,
that comes down on an angle, on that kind of a
That-
45-degree angle.
So would that become the main
That,
entrance?
and again, I'm here to find out, I would love to see that be a driveway that goes up to the barns, to the bigger lot, the remaining lot.
The curved driveway.
The curved, well, yes, the curved one more to the east. So in other words, you would never go through those two lots, you wouldn't have to get to the barns.
Again, Commissioner Nowak raises a good point, though, in that, the access to it, to the stable itself, the main access would be changing. And so that would all need it as part of the conditional use. If we approve these two lots, the conditional use gets amended to decrease the lot size of the commercial stable. Access would also need to be looked at to make sure that you have adequate access to it. Fire department can get back there and whatever new
Right.
access would happen, so.
Right, it would have to be improved somewhat to get,
Right.
for a driveway, but big
So
enough for.
so this is all
a fire
tied
truck.
together. If you were to create those two lots, it's kind of it's a little bit of a can of worms to modify the conditional use, make sure access works for the stable.
Well, and here's the thing, I wouldn't be against saying that until we actually sell off one of those lots, or both of the smaller lots, that I would, at that point, I could stop the conditional use. My thought is to leave everything kind of the way it is, at least for a while, run the farm, I would still own all three lots. At some point, I could then sell off the two houses, and then later add the third.
were we a little bit premature then, not knowing exactly where the floodplains are?
A little bit, we're a little bit. I'm not sure the boundaries are gonna change all that much, and we are premature. You wouldn't come back with an actual CSM or a subdivision plat until we knew for sure where they were.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, are you saying on either drawing or both?
And either drawing, the floodplain doesn't matter so much for the creation of those two lots, 'cause those homes already exist.
Right,
They're not changing. For the big option, we need to know where the floodplain exactly is.
For the other one?
Yes.
But if I were to at some point put a house there, I could tear down one of the barns that are there and put the house there. It's not a floodplain.
When you say there, what do you mean by there?
Which one?
Okay, so there's like three big barns up by, you know, on that bigger lot. Two of the barns are older. I could tear either one of those down and build another house there in that area. I mean, it's not floodplain at all. I mean, that's as high as,
But again, we would, you know, we'd have to either use the old maps to determine where the floodplain is, or wait for the new ones to be
yeah.
filed.
Well, the old maps don't show that in floodplain
Sure.
either, so.
And that would be.
And I don't think that would be a problem, I'm just saying, I don't know if it would, the bigger question with the floodplain seems to be down with the creek, down to the, what would it be, the north.
Correct.
You know, that's where the floodplain's kind of changing and growing and shrinking.
Well, actually,
Down here.
the old floodplain,
Closer to the road.
the old floodplain I have here,
Over here?
This area in here is where. this
yes,
floodplain-
the pink one up there, if you
Towards
look at the one up
Edgewood,
top.
This is,
Yeah, see, this is, right now, if you look
You
at
scroll
some of the floodplains, it's actually
Right.
bigger,
Yeah.
okay, than this. This is small.
Okay.
But
Yeah, it's
not,
this
in
one,
no
right,
cases
Sean?
it
This
ever
one.
down here.
That's the
was-
existing
Okay,
floodplain.
alright.
It's never been.
This
That's
here.
currently mapped.
Okay.
And so that's old, but that's what's
but
current.
that shows basically the entire
Yeah,
property
so that's
towards
the
it.
existing floodplain that's. mapped
After the
by
buildings,
FEMA.
There, yeah.
going north,
There's-
it shows as,
There's
Right.
nothing near the road that we'd allow a home.
Oh,
right,
Well, again, if, it depends on which drawing we're taking, you know, if you're talking with the three lots, I wouldn't be putting a home down in any of that red area anyway.
Right.
I would be putting it up in one of those, by those barns. Yeah, yep, it would be in
Right,
there.
and so then you're asking for three lots that aren't on a public road, is what you're saying.
Well, no, because one lot would be on the public road.
Yeah,
The big one,
The bigger one would
the
have,
big one would be,
would all be along the public road, yeah.
sure, that makes sense.
And you'd only have a shared driveway for part of it. You'd only have a shared driveway for, up until you got to the first rectangle lot, the 5-acre lot. or-
well, the other two lots would have a shared driveway for the rest of the way, right?
They would, yeah.
There'd
But
be a
if we-
three-way shared driveway for a portion, and a two-way shared driveway for
Correct.
the existing
That's,
owners.
that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Right.
I
And
mean,
the idea is, you wanna get 3 lots out of this, so you can build another house.
That would be ideal, yeah. I mean, I think, what I'm trying to do is, I know the property, obviously. I'm trying to come up with what would make the most sense, what would work, and I don't wanna get to a point where, say my wife and I were, my mother just passed away, and I don't want, you know, I start thinking about things like, you know, if one of us pass away, and the farm, we can't run the farm, well, now what do we gotta do, tear down a house? Somebody's gotta tear down a house? You know, I would like to get this kind of resolved, you know, for down the road. Now, I'm not saying I would necessarily do all, you know, if I get this divided, say it was divided today, I don't know that I would change a thing. At some point, I might say, hey, let's sell a house, and then we could stop the farm and, you know, do something else. At that point, do whatever I want with the 25 acres that are left, or 20, or whatever.
so your home is the furthest one to the south?
The one I'm living in is the closest to the river, correct?
Yeah,
And then we rent the
Well,
other
you-
one to a worker.
so you could possibly divide one lot off of there with the other house, and just have 2 parcels instead of 3, right?
We could, but it's 35 acres, and it's like, I would like to, you know, I'm looking at, I think, for me, probably the most lucrative would be the other option, where you have 7 houses, or 6, or, 3 would be, the way I'm looking at it, would at least make the most sense for the land. I mean, because if you have these 2 houses, and, I don't know, it just,
I don't know if you can actually, I'm not sure, after looking at your concepts, a 1,200-foot road, I don't know if it can reach that clearing in the back.
that's gonna make it challenging. I mean, I guess if the other one isn't gonna happen, then I would have to look more at what do I have to do, where would I put the cul-de-sac? There is shorter right before the pond, right before those 2 ponds, there's an outdoor arena there, there's an area there, maybe we could, you know, I don't know how big the cul-de-sac's gotta be exactly, I don't know. But there's some land there that, there's an outdoor arena, yeah, she's got the cursor by it right now.
Do you know
You
how
know.
wide your property is at the road?
At where?
At the road?
I do not, I don't have the,
Can you take a measurement of the property at the road?
you maybe don't have it with, I think I gave you didn't I give you a survey of it? We have a complete survey of the whole property.
I do not have a copy of
Okay.
that.
I thought I gave you that early on.
What is your wish for this property in the future? You wanna get out of the horse business, or,
Well, at some point, yeah, I'm not getting any younger. I thought I would, but I'm not. So, yeah, at some point, right, I'd like to retire and stay here. I love the property. I like, you know, the river, I love the wildlife, I love being off the road. That's quite honestly why we're there in the first place. I've always looked at it that I have to board these horses in order to afford to live there. I feel very fortunate to live there, but that's the cost. At some point, I'd like to smell the roses and kind of enjoy the property and maybe not be doing all that. If I can downsize somewhat, this would work, and that's why exactly why I'm doing it. Yeah, is it necessarily tomorrow? No, but it, you know, it would start progression. Like I said, things have changed in my life, and I start looking, and I'm like, hey, I'm not getting any younger.
Right.
So, I just think down the road, it's a big property, you know, I think it would work.
Where are you living on the property now?
And the house closest to the river, which I can show you, or she wants to bring it up, but
towards the
it's,
bottom of the page?
yeah, that one.
There's,
There's Bill standing
So
up
the
there.
only thing I was
Yeah,
gonna,
that's my
Bill's
house.
waving.
I was gonna add is the property looks like it's about 750 feet wide at the road, a little more narrow at the back, but, you know, the base option, the basest of options would be to leave both houses, draw a lot line basically north and south down the property, and kind of maybe have to zigzag around the two houses a little bit. But, you know, you could split off the one house, leave the one house that's remaining closer to the stables and create a second lot as the, you know, the bare minimum option. That would be feasible. That would meet the land division ordinance and the zoning and everything else. You couldn't get necessarily 3 lots out of it, but that would create 2 lots.
I'm not sure what oh, you mean,
Split it right down the middle, up and down, and jog around those 2 houses to make sure they're each on their respective lots.
okay, and then they'd each have
And each have
frontage
15
out there.
acres and 18 acres, and so
Yeah.
they'd still have to share access because you can't, because of the wetlands and the floodplain.
Yeah, you're not gonna get a driveway
You still
down
share a
the one,
driveway, but
right.
each road would have access on a public road then, or
Right.
each lot would have access on a public road.
Yeah.
It only gets you 1 lot, but it's illegal.
It's, you said, you
Legal,
legal.
legal.
It sounded like you
It-
said illegal.
It's legal, it meets the land
It's the
division.
mask.
Yeah.
It's the mask.
It's
Yeah.
definitely the mask.
Told you.
Sticking in my face.
Yeah.
now, would we you know, the CU isn't part of it, any of this, would anything, if we're just looking at the land division, would anything have to change in the CU, that we'd have to go?
Yes, no matter what, no
No
matter
matter
what we
what.
divide, we have to amend the CU.
Okay,
Even if I own all 3 pieces?
Yeah, only because we have to, because the CU then only applies to, it applies to a different property, a different acreage, needs to be amended. And if we remove the conditions out of there that talk about that both houses have to be resided in by someone who works there, that's gotta change. And so we have to, whether we have to do it up front or when the lots are sold, but I think we have to do it when the CSM is created. We have to change this conditional use at the same time, because otherwise there's no trigger to make it come back in.
I'm sorry,
When the land division occurs,
then you'd wanna change,
we
put
have to,
something
we
in
have
the
to do the,
CSM.
we have to amend the conditional use at the same time. To change the size and then take out the conditions related to the
Mhm.
houses.
Yeah, well, right now, we're not running it at the full capacity anyway, so, I mean, if it's dropping a number of horses, I don't know what that would all mean.
I'm not sure
exactly.
I'm not sure that's necessary to drop the number of horses or not. I just mean, at the bare minimum, we have to amend the lot size in the lot it applies to, because it doesn't apply to the same area.
Okay,
and we have to talk about the conditions that require someone to live in those homes.
Bill, do you have a copy of your conditions,
I don't have it with me, but I think I have one. I think I do, yeah.
If you don't, let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would be very pliable there. I mean, that's not something that's the big sticking point. As you were asking, yeah, I don't want to do this forever.
Right, the only rub is you mentioned that, hey, let's get the lot, maybe the lots approved, we'll continue operating through those lots. The access will remain the same, and we don't change anything until one of those lots are sold. We can't wait till one of the lots are sold, we have to wait, gotta do them when they're created.
Yeah, and I've been through the process once before, 20 years ago. I can do it again if that's the way, if that's what needs to be done. Or,
And it'll be handled right here in the village, so.
Yeah, I'm not, that would not be a sticking point for me, I can tell you that. We'd make that work one way or another.
Sure.
I certainly would. And that's, you know, if we have to make certain changes, I think we could, and, you know, if I sold off the two houses, I wouldn't want to continue going. You know, I wouldn't want to continue running.
Sorry, the last part, you wouldn't want to, after you sold the houses?
If we sold the two houses, I wouldn't want to run the farm anymore anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to retire at some point. Then I won't have to have the hay fever thing going on.
What about creating one parcel with the existing house on it? That you would maintain your river property and some of the trees and everything there, and have the other house tied into the conditional use in lot 2.
Yeah, I've thought, I mean, so you're saying like take the one house and attach it to the farm? To
Well,
the
instead of the 2-lot division here, just eliminate that one furthest to the north and have that with the commercial property, or the stable, and just have a separate lot for your own home there.
I guess one of the things that you know, if we were to do something like that, and we wanted to sell off the one lot, now we're selling the nice house, the newer house, the bigger house, the one that we live in, we gotta sell that one off, then we gotta move into a smaller AFAB. It's a very nice house, but it's not that big, and it's not the ideal spot, you know, or we gotta sell off the whole rest of the farm and just live in the one, you know, so I like the land, I like to have, you know, I like the use of the land and whatever. If I put a house over where the barns are, I would now have river frontage, be where I want to, you know, where I would have what I've worked for in my life, I guess, is kind of, you know, we've been back and forth, you know, a lot of different ways, and this is, nothing else, you know, works out ideally for us, I guess. I mean, it's, you know, you don't want to sell the, if you got two houses, you don't want to sell the nice one to somebody and then live into the, you know, smaller. Who wants to do that? So that means that we have to sell off the whole farm, and now we just have 5 acres. Well, I like my 35 acres. You know, I'd like to keep the whole thing, I guess, but.
But I thought it was your hope to retire and get out of the business at some time. But then you could still maintain your existing home and the river frontage.
I could put a home, wait a minute, say that again? Maybe I'm missing that. I don't wanna.
Well, if you just had the one lot with your existing home on there and maintain the river frontage there, you could always sell the rest of the property. When you retire, you'd still have your home in the river there.
If you're saying it's just 2 lots instead of 3?
Right. You could sell the stable and the other house and maintain your
Put
existing
that,
home.
and then I'd be driving through their lot to get to mine, and, yeah, I would just have the 5 acres then,
Right.
something like that, yeah, I mean, then it's sure, that's a possibility. Is it what I really wanna do? No. I don't think so. I mean, that's not what I'd like to do. You know, that's why then I looked back at this thing here, you know, if I'd do I'd be thinking about, well, could we break it up more then? You know, when I talked to Sean here, he had said, well, you know, 2 is easy, 3 is difficult, but 6 or 7 is more feasible. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. It seems to me that 3 should be easier than 6 or 7, so.
It all comes back to road access, though.
Right.
Right, and that's, I guess I don't understand that, because either way, I mean, what you were saying is splitting it somehow down the center and still getting one house on one half and one on, they're both on the same half. So you're gonna have to make a bunch of,
They were both in the west half, but yeah, there would be a jog.
so it'd have to be some kind of a funny jog, and okay, but then you still wouldn't have a driveway going to the roads. It just, that doesn't make to me, it doesn't make as much sense. It just, maybe that's because I would prefer to have a third
Sure.
third house. But when I look at it, you still have one property that has the road frontage. Either way, you're gonna have kind of a goofed up road frontage. I'm not sure why the road frontage is so important. I guess I don't even understand that myself, but that's, I'm not on the planning commission. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's really just good planning. Before there was a lot of planning rules and laws, there were a lot of lots that were created across America and Wisconsin that where lots were piggybacked on each other, and there was flag lots created, and it was just bad planning, because what it resulted in, and I'm not saying in this case it's gonna result in any problems, because your parcel's isolated unto itself, but it created a lot of problems where, when lots didn't have specific access for themselves onto public roads, it was just a mess of one lot piggybacking another lot, with flag lots and problems between neighbors, access easements, and so that's our way of just making it as clean as possible. Say, hey, you got your lot, you got access to a road, you can still share a driveway, and a lot of times we require shared driveways between adjacent lots to make it one access point where it might be around a curved over road that's dangerous, might be on a county road that where access is limited. So the shared access isn't so much of an issue, it's just, that's the rule, and so careful consideration needs to be given to waive that particular rule.
Have you ever discussed your proposal with the property owners to the east to see if they would want to be included in some type of like a loop road or something that would go back out to Edgewood?
To the east, no, I haven't. I don't know if I could. No, it's not something I thought about.
That would certainly open up the possibility of, getting around the cul-de-sac length issue
Right.
to pop
And
out.
how would that solve that problem?
You wouldn't have a cul-de-sac.
You would
The
loop it
road would
back
come in
to
and
Edgewood.
loop,
Oh, come in
Around.
and go right back out.
and then your neighbors could develop some parcels there too.
That's interesting, I guess. I mean, I hadn't thought about that. That would be more like this plan, just with the,
That's
Are
right,
you-
it would extend further to the east.
that would probably involve tearing down all my barns, and I would think, but, because I'm just picturing how the land is where it's high and where you'd go through to get to his, you got to stay where it's high on his. I feel like, I don't know, maybe is that what you were looking at, but is his land, does he have a clear shot out to the
Yeah,
road?
I don't know, and his land looks like it's very wet.
It's high in the back, but I don't know,
It is high in the back, yeah.
but
it
I
is.
don't know if it is all the way to the road or not, if he'd even have that option.
He's got a lot of dry land on the east side of his property. There's wetlands to cross, and so there's some challenges. It's not a done deal. It's not a no-brainer.
None of this is, it's an unusual
It would
property.
be on the east side of his property.
I didn't hear it, what was that?
Jamie? You didn't hear what you had to say?
No, I was just commenting about the fact that you're talking about the east side of his property would not be the west side of this line on the property line as far as some kind of an easement.
Yeah, the other thing is that to bring the road to the east onto the neighbor's property, the area where it immediately comes onto the neighbor's property is all environmental corridor. There would be a fairly big stretch of road there that there wouldn't even be any lots allowed on it. And so economically, it's not gonna make a lot of sense to shoot a road through there for hundreds of feet. It looks like about 1,000 feet through environmental corridor with not a single home on it at that point wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
No.
I think you said it best when you started, it's kind of an unusual, it's kind of.
It's a very
tricky-
challenging, it's very
yeah, it's-
challenging to develop in any meaningful way.
Either way.
I mean, and maybe there's other options, I'm all ears, I just, I just think if I'm gonna do it, I would like to at least get the two out of it, and
What about,
and then have the river frontage, have my barns, because I, you know.
are both those homes in good shape back there? And yours are
Oh, yeah.
certainly probably.
Yeah, I definitely don't wanna tear one down, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not a good option, if that's what you're asking, but I think they're both in good shape.
Well, we know there's developable land up by the road, right? That'll be out of the floodplain, not in the corridor. There's room for a few lots up front.
Well, yeah, that's it,
So what
I
if you brought-
wasn't 100% sure about that, so I don't know.
I mean, based on what the draft floodplain maps look like right now, it looks like there's probably room for 3 lots up there somewhere. And so if you brought a little stub road in there to serve those 3 lots, you could get 3 lots back there. Problem still remains with your 2 lots in the back. Obviously, 1 could stay no problem, because that's already, that would have frontage. It's just how you create 2 lots for those single-family homes back there. But I think your development potential is really closer to Edgewood if you're gonna do multiple lots.
And that's not, I mean, that was my first thought, after talking to, when I was talking to Waukesha Parks and Planning before, you became a village, it seemed like that was gonna be real challenging, and it's like, I'm not looking to make life difficult for anybody, you guys or myself or anybody, I don't wanna do that if it's ungodly challenging. That being said, yeah, I could put a couple lots up there, but we still have the 2 houses back here to deal with, so however we wanna, but yes, if I had 2 lots up there that I sold by a road, that was one of my first ideas,
Well,
I had.
I think I have maybe a solution. So let's say we get 3 lots up front there, there's a road that comes down with a cul-de-sac, it just extends to the edge of those 3 lots.
Okay.
From there, the 2 lots in back are basically gonna be pie-shaped, and they're each gonna hit that cul-de-sac bulb further up. They're gonna share a driveway to get back to those 2 lots in back, but they're gonna have frontage on that cul-de-sac for at least 45 feet, which is required by our ordinance. And so that will get you your 2 lots in the back. You still have to jog around those homes a little bit to get your 2 lots, and they touch the cul-de-sac basically that ends at those 3 lots up front. So you get maybe 5 lots in total.
And just have a long driveway.
Long shared driveway
To the barns,
yes.
and it'd be lot 5.
Splits
and
off where those
you
2
could
lots
build
in
a house
back.
there by the river, right?
So
Is
it's
that
the
what you're
same, it's the same concept almost as your 7-lot concept, except that road doesn't come back all the way. That road stops close, after the first 3 lots, and then you just meet that cul-de-sac bulb with your 2 lots, or even 3 lots that you create in the
Where
back.
would the cul-de-sac be,
Where the existing barn is up front there,
where that first barn is?
yeah.
You have this one here that shows that? Right down here.
We talked about the writing circle. Is that where you're thinking,
Okay, yeah.
Sean?
So that, when
Yeah.
you're saying put this.
I was thinking along the same, then you just
Not
have,
that far back, because that's
Just
all
these-
wetland floodplain.
From what I understand, you're saying these.
you would just have long
these 2 and
driveways
these 3.
towards the river,
Your
to
house
the
is
south.
here, right?
2 long driveways. One would be a shared driveway, and one would be the new
Where you live.
driveway, if you will.
This house, right?
Yeah.
Hey, no side,
Okay, I get the right one.
Yeah.
And that one's
Jamie.
the other one.
Okay.
we're not supposed to have sidebars.
Nice.
We were having one, you were having one. Yeah, let's see if we can all get on the same page so we can,
Right.
right?
So just to show up here. This is for the most part the dry area here, and so the road would come in straight south. We cul-de-sac at the end here, you get a couple, 2 or 3 lots up front here, because we can go as small as 1 acre for these lots.
Now, you circled the building, didn't you, Sean? What is that, right there?
Cul-de-sac.
Well,
No,
that's a little barn right there.
Yeah, the building.
Circling.
Well, the
You're cer-
cul-de-sac is down here somewhere.
Oh, okay,
That's-
you were
yeah.
circling the building, so it was like.
I mean, can you
well,
fill in those areas,
Okay,
or?
okay,
So in general, and so that's where the cul-de-sac ends up.
Okay.
So
Okay,
3 lots on
okay.
public road. There's a couple existing houses. There'd be a lot line that would be drawn between these houses. It would come at a diagonal, it would meet where the cul-de-sac was, they each have 45 feet in the public right of way. It'd basically be a pie-shaped lot here,
Okay,
and then the remnant for the rest of it. And so you get 4 to 5 lots out of that configuration, everything's got frontage on a public road. And these would share this existing driveway that comes in now, you will continue to share it in the future through an access easement for those lots.
And then the farm buildings
Farm buildings could stay.
stay where they are,
These
and then
houses-
they would have a driveway into that new cul-de-sac.
Correct. This,
well, would it be the one I'm talking about? Or how would you get to those barns? Would you go like the way I was talking?
this way?
Yeah, the way you were talking
Yeah,
about, right?
what I'm talking is where he's got his
Yeah, you could,
cursor.
Yeah.
you could bring that back through right to the cul-de-sac.
Yeah. And that's all doable, so.
That seems reasonable,
And then
depending on
and
where
then
the
you'd-
floodplains end up and so
Right.
on.
And then you'd have 2 more lots to the north.
2 to 3, depending, I don't know how.
How you can cut 'em in there.
But is it
So that's
these,
number 3, 4, 5, so you'd have 5 to 6 lots,
You'd have 4 to 5 lots.
4 to 5.
Yeah. 2, 3.
Maybe 3 up front and then
Wouldn't it be-
2
wouldn't it be
Well,
5
there's
to
2
6 if you
houses,
had-
then the farms, that's 3, and if you have 2 up front, that'd be 5.
It all depends on how it's gonna butt into the cul-de-sac and how it's gonna work.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Maybe
Well,
you could get.
couldn't
some
you come
sweeter-
off the road, though?
For the big one? You mean from Edgewood?
Well, no, for the very first lot, couldn't you just come right off the road, off the new road in the second one?
In the very first lot up here?
Yeah,
Well, no.
if that's the road,
This
if
one-
that's the new
This becomes a
road,
public road, yes.
right. So
And
could
it's
you
a
put
lot
one
here.
right there?
Yes.
Yeah,
You
and,
put one
and
right
that would be
here,
on the road, and there's
Put one
another
right
lot on the road. There's your cul-de-sac.
Cul-de-sac somewhere down here.
So you got 2 on the road, you got a cul-de-sac with a shared driveway with two lots and a new driveway, to the
Yeah.
back.
I mean, you could also, that, what we call the hidden pastures, that green area right there, I mean, one could go in there too if you wanted to, I mean,
Yeah,
I've also-
potentially, if the floodplain shows it would work, you could
Yeah.
maybe access and connect that to the cul-de-sac as well.
yeah, and I don't know how, what that all does with, all your environmental corridors and everything else. To me, that seems scary as heck compared to what I was proposing, but if you think that
But
that's.
everything's got access on a road, which is what the crux of the issue is.
That's the bigger hurdle than dealing with.
Now, you still have to meet the lot width has to be 150 feet for these lots. And so that means that at the building setback line, so 50 feet back from the road, for any of these, you have to have at least 150 feet of lot width.
Okay.
So that's.
So where that pie shape comes
So
down.
the pie shape 50 feet back's gotta be 150 feet wide.
Okay. And it sounds like a surveyor's deal.
You'd have to play with this a little bit to see if it would work, maybe get your surveyor to draw up a revised concept. But again, we can't approve anything with the creation of these new lots until we know what a floodplain really is.
Mhm.
But it gives you something, if you wanted to draw something up and either, let me take a look at it to make sure it meets our ordinances, or even bring it back to the plan commission again, if you wanted to say, hey, here's my revision, what do you think? We could probably go either way.
I mean, is that what, I guess what I'm asking then is, are you guys, would you rather see something like that than either one of these two? Or, well, you don't like this one because of the, you can't do this, is I think what you're saying, and this being the one with 7 lots, because
You
the
can't do it.
road's too
The
long.
road's too long.
Well,
Okay, so you would rather have what he's proposing or this, is that?
it's hard for us to say without knowing what your intent is.
Right.
If we go with the second one here in 7 lots, that takes all your buildings away. You don't have a staple
Yeah,
anymore.
that's why, to me, that wasn't the most feasible one, the one with 7 lots. The one that's
Oh, right.
feasible to me is the one with 3. But if that's, if that's just the end of the world, that it doesn't have the road frontage, then what Sean is proposing, I guess my question is that a better proposal for you guys, or what I'm asking?
Well, we don't like to create lots that don't have road frontage. And that would eliminate a lot of it, but,
Fire access and so
so.
on.
Right.
If there's enough.
Fire access and so on.
Yeah,
Yeah, but if you don't have a drive, see, I guess I don't know why, if you don't have a driveway, what's the difference if you have access to the road? I mean, a fire truck can't go across, through the woods.
It's not about fire access. I mean, fire access is a different issue altogether. This is just proper planning and organization of lots and where they.
Well, road access, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't really have the access because you have natural barriers that, so there is no access. Even though you have 150 foot going to a road, it's not really doing anything other than making,
Point taken, but that's just the way.
that's the way it is.
that's the way it is.
Right, isn't it, Edgewood Avenue is a busy road, and the more driveways on Edgewood Avenue, the less safe it becomes, because you got driveways entering Edgewood Avenue, as opposed to like a subdivision road, even if that subdivision road just has 5 homes on it.
Sure.
You know, it's a safer access into Edgewood Avenue. So that's one thing. The other thing is on shared driveways, and we have them, and easements, and the neighbors don't get along, and then, you know, and we have some long ones, and we just had a gentleman in here and said, you know, basically wanted the town to take over a shared driveway and make it a town road.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, it's a driveway, we're not gonna bring it up to town specs.
we don't own the
And
land.
behalf of everybody who lives in a subdivision who paid for their own roads when they bought their lots, that's not right. To get the village taxpayers to pay for something everyone else paid for on their own. So that's why, when we talk about a road being put in by the landowner, the developer, who's gonna profit from the sale of extra lots, that's their cost. And, you know, to your point, if you put in this big cul-de-sac, yeah, you could probably sell more lots, but you gotta pay for the road, it's expense.
Right.
And you
Well,
got environmental problems and all kinds of stuff, so I don't know, to Commissioner Nowak's point, to me, I look at it as, okay, option A, to me, option A is 2 lots, 2 homes. I know you don't wanna do it, Sean says, but it's legal, that's the easiest, okay. Option B is kinda your option 1, would be 3 lots, 2 homes, 2 lots with a home each, and then the barn farm, which gives you the ability to build a 3rd home. There, you know, we've got, as I see it, Sean, maybe you can jump in, but there I see it as, okay, we have a shared driveway to Edgewood Avenue with 3 homes sharing it part of the way and 2 homes sharing it further south. And it's a long driveway,
That already exists.
but it already exists. So we'd be adding another
Those-
home
those
to
two
it,
homes, yeah.
it'd be adding another home to to an existing driveway. And sure, I mean, if everybody gets along and, you know, abides by their agreement, shared driveway agreement for plowing and maintenance and everything else, you know, that's fine, although we have problems throughout the village. Eventually, as the owners change, you know, when it's done, everybody's, okay, we'll do it. People get old, they sell, the new owners don't wanna do it, and whatever. So it's always problematic then, especially when you're talking about that kind of length, you know, to maintain it.
Yeah.
And so then we say, well, you gotta put in a road. Well, that's expense. It's expensive to put in a road to state standards, you know, 66 feet right away,
24 feet of pavement.
24 feet of pavement, 2 layers of asphalt, I mean, the whole gravel bed and all of it. And we've got a cul-de-sac problem. And I don't know, I know we've approved extensions, but not past 1,200.
Not past 1,200.
Right.
It says specifically the ordinance cannot be passed.
1,200. So when we talk about putting the bulb closer to Edgewood, we're trying to stay within the 1,200.
Right, and you're saving a lot of, it's a third of the size or half the size as you showed in the.
You save a lot of money
Save a lot of
putting it
money
in.
that
too.
way.
Yeah,
Still get close to the same. amount.
I wouldn't be against that,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, and if I'm gonna put in, get those lots, I mean, I'll probably have enough money to pay for that shorter road, I can
But
do
you'll
that.
have 2 or 3 new neighbors.
If that's you're still gonna have a shared driveway for,
For those two,
For those
to the
two
2
back.
existing
For the two.
homes, it'll be shorter now.
Mhm.
It'll be shorter, half as long or
Those
however
two
the
homes
feet.
are already sharing a driveway.
Right, but he lives in.
But they'd still have their own access to a public road. I just wanna correct something I said before about the lot width. I mentioned 50 feet back from the right of way, had to be 150 feet wide.
okay,
That's not true. I was thinking of another community I work. It's basically, the average width of the lot 45 feet on the bulb of the cul-de-sac, and then average, the sort of pie shape has to average out 150 feet.
Okay.
So-
Well, if
so
one
it's-
lot has a lot, then it would fix that. It would average out then.
Yes. It shouldn't be an issue to get 150 feet of width for
Yeah.
for a couple lots back there.
And depending on how wet it is and how you build these roads, it could be, you know, it's hard to
Well,
say. It's
that's-
hard to say, that goes to the expense of the road. You're not saying you can't build over it, but it goes to the expense of building in the environmental corridor if it's wet.
Right, but not over the top of the floodplain, not over
No,
the top of
right.
wetlands.
And so Commissioner Noak's point, hey, how can we, and your point too, Sean, I mean,
Yeah.
for me personally, it's hard to imagine it without having a picture, okay? I can see it in my mind, but
It's
it's,
rough.
it's rough.
If we,
But the environmental piece and the wetland piece, that makes it even more difficult because we're saying, well, it's changing, good thing, it's shrinking. I mean, these earlier, the DNR map, it's the floodplain is practically
The whole-
the whole
front half of the
property,
yeah.
whole property from the
Right.
buildings to the road.
Yeah, I know.
We
I
said
look
it's
at that and say, well, what,
Right.
where are you, I mean, is there
I
anywhere?
mean, we had a 100-year flood and it wasn't anywhere near that, so.
Yeah, we know it's not accurate, but we have to use that until something is definitive.
Yeah, I know. I had to buy flood insurance for that one barn too for a year, so I wasn't thrilled about that either, but.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of all these old maps either. I mean, you know, they seem largely
Yeah, I don't know
inaccurate.
I don't know how a floodplain can all of a sudden be there and then not, but that's a whole nother.
Right. We're all struggling with that.
Right.
So it's really hard to give, like,
I would,
Direction.
even if it
Direction,
come
I
back to
mean-
plan commission, I'd love to see another concept that
Mhm.
shows what we talked about, and maybe we can fudge it a little bit and massage it to make it look good and work right, and then at that point, we can determine, hey, what do you wanna do? Do you wanna bring it back conceptually or full-blown? Do you wanna, are you still gonna look to continue your operations at the stable? What do you wanna actually accomplish right now? Because we could approve it, let's say you came up with a new subdivision, because it would be a subdivision, you know, with that many lots. Get the subdivision approved, get your road approved, and then just make it contingent basically on, you can continue to operate your barn, your.
well, you'd make it contingent on amending the CU.
Amended CU, all those things.
Right, because you'd have to, because you'd have to amend the CU, as you
Well,
pointed out.
we couldn't approve a subdivision plat for this and still allow the CU to go on
Right.
if it encompassed that whole area. There's no land left anymore for the operation.
Right, yeah, if we were gonna, well, you're at anywhere from 4 to 5 lots, right? Or is it
Maybe
Yeah.
4 to 6 depending, we have to see
4 to
what that
6.
works out.
is
You
it
think you could
feasible to,
maybe squeeze a sixth one in?
I mean-
Maybe,
is it
maybe.
feasible to operate the stable here without the acreage?
I mean, it's at a limited capacity, I would think. I mean, if I'm gonna go to the expense and the trouble to get this into a subdivision, once it's done, I'm probably gonna start selling lots off and be done with it then, at that point. If I'm gonna have 6 or 7 lots, or what'd you say, 4 to 6? 4 to 6 lots, I'm probably gonna say, well, then let's sell them, but you know, just from what I know of the property, it seems to me that it's gonna be challenging to do that. Now, if you're telling me you don't think it is, and that makes more sense, well, then that's the way I would
I'm
probably
not saying
go.
it's not gonna be challenging, I'm just saying that shorter road configuration is gonna be much more doable than.
Well, if you go any further than that, then you have to cross that creek, and you're
Cross-
talking about a bridge.
You're talking about a full-blown
Right,
bridge, which
yeah.
could be $100,000.
Right. Well, you could go across it with the driveway, like if I use
The
that
driveway is
thing.
a different.
Right.
thing
That's a
altogether.
different thing. Yeah, I mean, and if I don't get, do you know what it would cost? Do you have an idea what it costs to put a road up to that barn? I mean, what are you talking, I mean, if you have a ballpark, I mean,
I don't know, it looks
Doug.
like that's probably maybe 800 feet. It may be, maybe $100 to $200 a foot, potentially.
100 to 200 at 800 feet.
Yeah, it's gonna be, it's, one of your lots, you're gonna probably sell one of your lots to cover the cost of the road.
Mhm.
You talking about a driveway or a road to the
road,
barn?
The actual road.
Not a road all the way to the barn, just a road.
You're talking,
Up
yeah,
to the
$200.
Oh, the
times
first
eight,
barn, right, the
Oh,
first barn.
okay.
160,000 or something like that would be.
It could be, and I'm not an engineer, so I'm just kind of ballparking.
Yeah.
And the cul-de-sac bulb is a little more, because there's a little more asphalt there, but, you know, it's gonna be the price of a lot, potentially.
Yeah, I mean,
Or a lot and a half.
to getting approval for a subdivision, I mean, the whole process is a whole lot bigger than what I'm proposing over here. Am I not correct in that? I mean,
Say that again?
to get approval for a subdivision, say that you guys like this idea, is that not gonna be 10 times harder for me to do than it is to just make 2 or 3 lots?
It's a process, I mean, you're gonna have to get it approved through us, you're gonna have to get the stormwater approved through Waukesha County, but it's not necessarily challenging in itself to get it done.
Mhm.
Your challenges are the floodplain, the wetlands, and other things.
All right, well, that's what I was kinda trying to avoid, I guess. So, am I correct in saying that you guys do not like this plan 2 is Carl put it? Is that
Well,
is that for sure out, and you just don't wanna do that, or?
Well, I don't know if we're willing to create lots on an easement or a driveway, and no public access to a road there, right?
yeah, I guess that's the question. Would we, I think that's what you're asking, is can I take my parcel and create 3 new lots, carve it up into 3 lots? 2 lots with existing homes, and the 3rd lot, which is the big one, with the barns, the farm on it, and I'll have a place to build my retirement home, or a home on it.
Yeah.
And the challenge there, Sean, as I hear it, is, well, there's shared driveway with 3 homes on it.
Right, that's the issue. The issue is it
So,
doesn't,
yeah, so it really comes down to that issue. Sure, there's environmental and wetland and all that issues here too, but is that really the hangup on that one? The difficult part of it?
yeah, there's no public road access. That's the challenge.
Right. Sorry. And there's, well, he'd have, if he's gonna do the 3 lots, I mean, we're not gonna let him go take a second driveway to Edgewood. It's an awful long driveway there, but is that a
Well,
possibility?
one of my ideas of that, we had talked about that, is that angle driveway that comes down, just parallel the driveway that's there, make the driveway longer. I get one and they get another one, so now you have 2 driveways that are just right alongside each other. Because it'd be the easiest. We could go back, there's another way through there that you could probably make it happen. But rather than mess with anything, you could just have a double wide driveway going out to the road. Now the 3rd lot would have its own driveway. That would be, in my opinion, so much easier, but.
Well, that would be, so that piece of property then, there'd be 2 driveways out to Edgewood, one shared, and then one, whether it's
Exactly.
paralleled or
One
however you
shared,
wanna
just,
say it.
yeah, one shared and another one going along, that would be the 3rd lot, or go to the barns.
Right, I'm just thinking out loud, Sean, just, I don't know the answer to that.
Are you asking me the,
Yeah, is that even a possibility? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Well, I don't wanna give an idea out that you're gonna, hey, that's even worse.
That is
What are
one
you
of my-
talking
well,
about?
I mean, I've obviously thought about all sorts of ideas.
Right.
Quite honestly, this is the one that I came up with, is the least, that's gonna upset the environmental corridors and floodplains and all that the least, because it's not that I don't mind coming and seeing you guys and going through meetings and all that, but I don't wanna do something that's just ungodly challenging. To me, it seems, I don't understand the part about not having the road access at this point. I mean, I get the shared driveway, but that's already, you know, we can't even fix that. You know, there's no good way to even fix that unless I get everybody helicopters or something.
Sorry, last part?
I said, there's no way to fix that unless I got each house a helicopter and everybody just flew in and didn't share the driveway. There's really no good way to do it.
Yeah, there's actually a provision in here that talks about helicopters.
Very good, Sean.
Well, and part of this was created by, you know, that second house. I mean, we'd have even more flexibility if that second house wasn't in here, but it is, you know, the county's, you know, your CU.
I mean, I'm sure they told me back 20 years ago that we would have to maybe someday tear that house down or divide it, but I don't think it mattered to me back then, because I figured, you know, if dividing it, we were talking at that point, we were gonna divide it and put a second house back there, and they said, you don't have to. So it was like, okay, again, it just made it easier.
Easier at the time.
Easier at the time, right. Which now, again, now, you know, it's just time to, you know, I'm trying to deal with it.
Well, where should we,
Well, like I said, I would like to see the alternative concept, kind of what we talked about, see how that lays out, see how many lots you actually can get. Based on the current, or the draft floodplain maps, the ones that are in draft format now, that are reduced from the old ones, right? And so, at least to see where things lay out, how many lots we can actually get. You can do 1 acre lots, lots as small as 1 acre if you need to, and see how it plays out. Either you can come back here and bring it back, or you and I can talk about it and, like I said, massage it for a little bit to see where things land, and then decide what to do next. I mean, it sounds to me like you're not in favor of approving any new lots that don't abut by a public road. Is there a consensus on that? Or not?
Yes.
yeah, like I said, the only
They have
thing
to
I
have
would.
public access.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is if my little idea, if that's, would be something we're pursuing or to
Could you-
look at.
Say that one more time, Carl.
So, we'd take your total property, carve it up into three lots, right? Two of the lots would have existing homes on, kind of like you've outlined. They would share a driveway as they do now. The third lot would be the big lot, if you would, and it'd have the farm on it, the farm buildings on it. And, you know, you would have the ability to build a new house there somewhere, you know, with wetlands or tear down the barn or whatever. And the driveway for that lot would also go down to Edgewood Avenue, you know, side by side with the existing one. That's what you were thinking.
Yep, and then it would have frontage also. It would have the bulk of the frontage out there.
But how?
Yeah, so then how does it, is that even a possibility?
So the two existing homes would be on their own lots?
Right. And sharing a driveway.
Piggyback like Bill showed, or,
What he's saying is this drawing right here, using the shared driveway that's there now, this lot coming down, and then the driveway coming down, and then paralleling, going right alongside the other one. So now, there would be two driveways that'd be parallel each, you know,
Sure.
right together.
but I'm still not following, how do we get, there's still lots not on a public road.
There's two,
I'm sorry, we're not looking at pictures here, so it's hard.
right, I know that, I don't know, it's hard to.
Well, there's
hard to
never gonna
explain or
be,
visualize without a picture, but right now, you've got two homes, one lot, two homes sharing one driveway with access to Edgewood Avenue.
Right.
Afterwards, you'd have three lots, two with homes, potentially a third with a home, the same driveway down to Edgewood,
Yeah.
okay? Either, three homes sharing that driveway, or the existing two homes sharing that driveway, and then a second driveway for the big lot.
exactly, yeah.
And that second driveway would have access at Edgewood Avenue. So there'd be, right now, there's one driveway access in Edgewood.
Yep.
The second way I just said it, there'd be two.
And knowing the land, that would be very doable,
So is that doable under the way we?
physically.
Yeah,
I'm looking at his option with the two lots, I'm still not following how,
Well, yeah, if we
Those
create a
lots
lot for
Can I
each of
draw-
those
can I
existing
draw it?
homes there,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead and draw it.
then we're creating a lot without road frontage.
Yeah, if you wanna draw it.
right, they're
pass
sharing a
around.
driveway.
We're
and they're-
creating two lots there
with the
without road frontage.
frontage. They'd have one long driveway.
But they don't have the frontage on a public road, which is required by our ordinance.
And how much frontage do they need?
66 feet on a straight road, 45 feet on a cul-de-sac.
So 66 feet. But
So all we're doing is.
I guess all I'm saying, now we're gonna have a side note. This here is, how many feet is this?
Shared.
Share that driveway.
Right, so it's the same,
700
but
or
it's the
something?
same thing,
Yeah,
they still
something like
don't
that.
have access on a public road.
Right,
It's no
but-
different than this.
Unless you do your thing where you split it, they're never going to.
I mean, isn't that what this option is, that you have, I mean, what's the
It
difference?
is, other than we're having another access going out to the road.
Right, so whether all three share it or two share it, that's not really the sticking point. I mean,
You're
these-
saying the
these two
sticking, you're
lots-
saying the sticking point is
those two
the,
lots,
the lot has to touch the road.
Yes.
They
has
have
to
to
touch
abut a
edges.
public road,
or a new road,
not the driveway to that lot.
The lot
itself.
themselves
Yes.
have to touch the.
Right.
that's the issue. Either they have to touch Edgewood or they have to touch a new public road that comes in.
And you can't make a narrow little strip go down, because then you call it a
Because then the
flag lot,
flag lot,
right?
and there's rules against that too, yeah.
Right.
Unless we made well, what about if you made three lots go down to the road, split it up third or something? Maybe there's a way to do that. And
There, potentially, there are rules in the ordinance about unnecessarily narrow lots and things like that, that it should be avoided, so that's something that to be considered, but still, I'm not, there would still have to be cross-access across those lots for, to get to the driveway on the west side, which is possible.
Say that part again, I'm not
Well,
sure.
you'd still have to have access easements across the lots to get to the shared driveway, right, just like it is now.
Right,
So the first lot, whoever's on the first lot, the westernmost lot,
okay,
the strip, he would be, on his property, he'd be allowing the guy on the middle lot and the guy on the eastern lot to have access to his property. The guy on the middle lot would have to provide access to the guy on the east to get across his property.
right.
And so there'd be a couple of different access easements, and it would get a little complicated, and as soon as people don't get along, there might be problems, if someone's not plowing the driveway. What happens when the middle guy doesn't plow the driveway anymore, and then the guy to the east can't get across?
Yeah, I still have trouble, I'm sorry, and I don't wanna be a pain, but even your idea, you're still gonna have
I know.
shared driveways, and you're gonna have all the same
The
stuff.
two at the back, correct.
Mm-hmm,
But everybody's got access to a public road. In this case, we're creating, three narrow strips that would have access to the public road. But I think it's more confusing in terms of how the driveways have to cut across the properties to get, and then there have to be easements on two different properties at least. The middle property would have an easement, the western property would have an easement, and
Well,
so the
that-
western one would benefit the two eastern ones, the middle one would benefit the eastern property. And so it would be very complicated. So, I mean, I think I've given my opinion, so, not sure what else I would add.
I'm out of ideas.
Well, it shouldn't be up to us to come up with the ideas.
I guess that's where I'm kinda confused.
Right, so originally the feedback was just about, hey, is it possible to get access without a public road? That's the main thing, right? And so that would be the two lots, and you guys are kinda saying, no, it's not. If not, would you be opposed to a subdivision that might look like this? We said it couldn't quite look like that because first you couldn't get 7 lots, you could get 6, and the road's too long. But we wouldn't be opposed to a new road coming in for a certain portion of it.
I'm kinda concerned because it's basically his property and he should be coming into us.
Sure.
Okay, and we spent a lot of time during this on both ends here, okay? But this is stuff that should go on someplace else and then we take a look at what the reality is. We spent a good amount of time
Sure.
going over proposals, we could do this or we could do that, or we could do that.
down with the planner. Okay.
And we did meet, the problem is that he wanted to know, and I can't read your mind, whether or not you'd allow access onto a public road, or without a public road, or if a different configuration of the property might make sense. It's all conceptual. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the conceptual CSM is to weigh options, and so we don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I can't make decisions anyways. So we talked about a couple different options. I didn't see these until after I met with them, and I wrote my staff report to give some feedback on these two things, but that's as far as I took it at the time. So now that we have more input from the Plan Commission, it might benefit you and I to meet and just talk and maybe rehash out the next step.
Yeah, I apologize for that, but I'm just, this is difficult. I don't know what you guys are thinking at all. I don't
Well,
know, you know.
We have guidelines that we have to go by in
Yeah.
approving stuff like this, so if it doesn't meet the guidelines, our hands are tied, then, so.
Right, and here, the weird thing about this property is because it's a property with two homes on it, right? Those were approved through a conditional use, and Vernon also approved that second home at some point in the past. And
We
so-
had to approve
and so
that
I didn't
second
know-
home.
And so I didn't know if there'd be any appetite for any waivers because of the odd condition of the
Well.
property. And so I couldn't say, hey, no way in hell this is gonna happen because we don't allow roads or lots to be created down on the public road. It's a unique situation. I couldn't provide feedback in terms of what
I don't
the
know
Plan
how that,
Commission
with
would
the
be
second
about.
home was ever allowed. But
Well, I think it was a family internal, wasn't it? The second home? It wasn't just a general family residency, it was
I'm not sure what you're asking.
a member of your family, right?
Yeah, well, no, we rented, the house was too small, we were trying to add on. The plan was when we bought the farm, we were gonna make the house bigger.
Okay,
Okay, it's an A-frame, it's half in the ground. We had umpteen builders looking at it. And I had a builder one day say, let's just tear this down, build a new one. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty nice house. So we came and asked, and, all of a sudden somebody said, hey, they can have two houses because of blah, blah, blah. And voila, it was done. And we were able to build a second house, rather than tear the one down, which seemed like a perfectly good house, just too small. So we built the second house, and we've used it
so it's
for-
general residency
But no,
though?
the condition requires.
We
that they
rented
work-
we rented one out. I don't know what you mean by general residence.
Well, in other words, it isn't someone like your son, your daughter, a member of the family?
No, it was always rented to somebody that
Oh.
was not related.
Okay,
But they
It
work,
still
they
is.
work unstable.
They work on the stable, absolutely.
employee,
Right,
okay.
at one point we said it's a lot of work here, we wouldn't mind having
Yeah.
a neighbor if they help out. That's exactly
Okay.
why we did it. So it did work out very well, and it has for 20 years.
Needs a new plan.
Well, I
Yeah,
guess he
that's what it
knows
sounds like.
our feelings, I guess, and what we can do and what we can't. But
Yeah, you think, if you think back, if you had shared driveways, we wouldn't have cul-de-sacs, so. It's gotta have, when you own a home, you want public access to a road rather than have to go across somebody's driveway. And again, the point was made, that what about plowing the snow or taking care of it, does that have to be blacktopped, et cetera, so, yeah.
Well, yeah, and we realize that, I see that, and that was one of our first thoughts, well, we can't do that because we can't, but then you look around and there are lots of them. There's one right up the road where it's a shared driveway where there's like 5 houses back there, just right up the road on into it. So
year after year, we've got problems with those
Yeah, and
situations.
And I
and
can understand that.
That's why we have to try to eliminate them.
Yeah, I understand that.
Right, they're pre-existing, we have to live with them, and we're trying to prevent it
Grandfather.
going into the
The
future.
future, right. Well, again, this is just too hard for me to try to figure out, because I don't know what to do, and, I'll talk to Sean
Right,
some more.
I couldn't give you a definitive answer on, hey, would it be even considered as to creating lots off of the.
I mean, if you guys like that idea that Sean's done, we'll draw that up and see if that is something that,
See what it looks like, or work
And
with us.
we'll determine if it needs to come back to the Plan Commission conceptually, or we're ready to sort of button it up, and when you're ready to bring the subdivision in, whenever that might happen, you could do that.
Right, we do.
okay,
It's gotta economically work too,
Right.
otherwise,
yeah.
I mean, there's no point.
Well, that's the other side of it. I'm not gonna
Right.
do something that's gonna put me in the poor
Right.
farm either.
Right. Well, right, if you gotta build a road, you gotta cover the cost.
Right, that's got it.
Right, but even if 3 lots was your main goal, right, that's what you're.
That was my hope,
Was
yeah.
3 lots, so if you can get 2 more out of them to cover the cost of doing the road and engineering fees and all those things.
Right.
Might be a wash, and you get what you want, you get your 3 lots, and then a couple have to be sold to pay for the road.
Right. Well, you know, I'll have to, chew on all of that a little bit, I guess, but.
Okay, we got a plan to,
Work
Okay.
with Sean,
Yeah.
yeah, work with Sean.
All right, so whenever you're ready, just give me a buzz, and we'll talk more.
All right, yeah, I'll do that. And, okay. All right, thanks, sorry.
Thank you.
Too long, but,
Good luck.
yeah.
okay, next item on the agenda are a series of materials. Sean, you can tee us up, and maybe we can order these on how we should tackle these. We're not gonna tackle these at night, or tonight. This is
Yeah,
for
we're not gonna
future
get into
discussion. And what I wanted to do is get them on the agenda, get them introduced, so that we know what we're supposed to be working on, and maybe if we can prioritize them, and maybe we can't, but if we can prioritize them, then we can start scheduling them on our regular plan commission meetings and kind of tackling them one at a time. Because I think they're all important. Part of it's becoming a village, and part of it, they just need to be revisited. I mean, the conditional use ones, for example, all need to be revisited in the light of Act 67, if nothing else. So, Sean, you want to start with shoreline and floodland?
Sure, now that we're a village, we don't have our own shoreline and floodland ordinance. We are required by law to implement the county's shoreline and floodland ordinance, because that was what was in place at the time we became a village. And so those aren't it's not our ordinance, it's theirs, but we have to enforce it. And so it's like our ordinance in a lot of ways. A lot of the districts are similar, a lot of the rules are similar, but it's not quite exactly the same. There's some discrepancies between the two, and at some point in time, the village of Vernon needs to have its own shoreline and floodland ordinance. So there's no immediate rush to get it done. There's nothing that says we absolutely have to have our own within a certain period of time. But it's something that we're gonna be thinking about moving forward, and something we're gonna have to draft up. The way I've seen it done in the past for other towns that have become villages is basically to adopt the DNR's model floodland ordinance, which covers all the rules for floodplains and floodlands. That's very simple. And then tweak our zoning ordinance to incorporate shoreline standards into it. So we don't have to have a separate shoreline ordinance, we can incorporate that into our zoning ordinance, but to make sure all the standards that are required are in there. So it's basically 2 pieces to that one. No immediate rush, but something that should be on our minds. Same thing for updates to the Vernon land use plan. I know we just did some updates to it regarding the areas around the village of Big Bend. Now that we are a village, there's other things that need to be addressed in there. We need to talk about extraterritorial plat review, whether or not we're gonna be doing that in any capacity. And the comprehensive plan should touch on that. Now that we have the powers to do TIDs and those types of things. Generally, not just specifically for towns, the comp plan should look at that. So I guess what I'm recommending is that I'm not sure we need to do an immediate update to the land use plan, but once updated census data is available, for instance, that's going on through the end of the year, I think. Results probably won't be out till sometime in 2021, maybe the middle of 2021. We might look to do an update then. We'll have some new updated census data, which is a great time to do a comp plan update anyways. And then we can update it from a town to village in terms of a few different things. Subdivision definition, we introduced this back in January. As you know, a subdivision in the town, and now the village of Vernon, if you create any 2 lots in any one year, it's basically a subdivision, which is very, very restrictive. We've granted a couple of different waivers on that in the past, and so you guys all should have a memo. It was originally drafted in January that we sent out. Did everybody get that? Everybody's got that? Yeah, that just kind of compares us to surrounding communities. I think we all agreed that's the direction we're going and pushing. Just please review that, as we'll be looking to make some changes to the subdivision ordinance, in accordance with that. We also talked about the residential development control allotment process, which is also in the subdivision ordinance. There's a memo that you should have along with my proposed changes to the allotment process. When we looked at the Pheasant Run subdivision, we had a lot of problems going through that matrix and assigning points based on the criteria that was defined. So I'm gonna ask you to please read my draft changes, and next time this is on the agenda, we should discuss some of the specifics, discuss the scoring system, make sure I got the right criteria on there. So the subdivision definition and residential development control are probably fairly high priorities. And then also the proposed changes to conditional uses, you also should have my memo for that, along with the changes to the conditional use list within our ordinance. I think we talked about this in the past. The idea was to strike most of them that didn't have adequate conditions, keep the ones that do. Waukesha County is gonna be going through updating theirs. We talked about piggybacking on their process since they have a lot of, almost the same list of conditional uses that we do. If someone comes in for a conditional use that doesn't happen to be in our list because we would strike them, they have the right to either wait till we introduce them back again or to propose conditions such like the event barn did. So that's currently what we're proposing. So the conditional uses along with the subdivision ordinance changes, I think, are a high priority. And if maybe next month is light, we could plan to discuss those at next month's plan commission agenda. If not, we'll just, kick it down, but not too far, because I think, those are important changes to look at.
The conditional use, the strikes, seems to me that's very important, because if we don't get them struck and somebody wants to come in, they're still there.
There's almost no conditions on some of those,
Yeah.
so basically there's no good way to deny a lot of those conditional uses if there aren't good conditions in place.
Right,
Yeah.
so at least, and maybe conditional uses have to be more of a two-step process. The step one would be just to strike.
That's
And
exactly, step one is to
right,
strike
strike.
those and make those few changes, and then we're moving forward.
And then remove a step two would be, okay, what makes sense?
What
now?
makes sense, yeah, exactly. The last thing, transition of existing and dormant conditional uses. Karen, I think this is more your thing, I'm not sure what
Just
that,
wanted to know what, them to think about what process they wanna take on conditional uses that, are dormant and or don't exist, but, not that they have to do anything now, but,
you talked, didn't you, when we met at the board staff meeting, you mentioned a list of all
Yeah.
conditional uses
and I'll have.
and where they are and what, if they're expired, so that would be the next step, is just to share that list and say,
Right.
hey, we have 50 conditional uses in the village, here's what they are, where they are, we know for a fact this one hasn't been operating. And
So we do have a complete list.
Yes,
How many are there?
I don't know. I'll bring it, the next plan commission meeting looks like a couple over 100.
Over 100?
Can we assign those to Vince to go out and take a look at them?
No,
No?
oh, he's swamped.
So when we issue
Well,
conditional
we could,
uses,
but we wouldn't get an answer for a while.
one of the ideas is for new ones that get issued, that there's a time frame when it gets revisited, right? And
That's
so every 2
Yes,
years we revisit
every 2
it.
years it's supposed to
And
be.
so there's gotta be a master list that says, hey, this was approved this date, it's gotta come back within 2 years. It's the petitioner's responsibility to do that, but we'll know and we'll trigger it, and say, when we see it on the list, we'll mention it to them, hey, you need to come back in and get this reviewed,
Right,
or else you may be in violation of.
and
the
some are so
conditional
old
use.
that the
Some are
commission
expired,
could
yeah.
go through the process of determination, or
Yes.
people are dead,
Well,
and,
that's what we have to
right.
check out. Somebody's gotta go out there and physically look at the properties and
Right.
see
Well,
if
that's
the
been done.
use is still there.
Right.
If not, we can bring it in and terminate
That's
it.
been, that's
So
been.
I haven't seen the list, I know we've been
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
it, but that's,
This is old, this goes back to when I was a chair that we
Yeah.
talked about.
It goes back to when I was the chair too.
Also,
It's really old.
it is really old, holy
We've never had a list until
Well, I
now.
only revisited it when I was the chair, to find out,
We've never had a list till now, though. That's what I'm,
sorry.
we've never had a list of all the conditional uses till recently, so.
So that's a lower priority.
so I'm thinking,
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
next month, if it's light, we'll talk about the subdivision, items and then the striking of the conditional use items. And then if everyone's in agreement with that language, or maybe we tweak it next time, we can set a public hearing for changing,
Right.
those things. And we can. if
Can we
talk-
strike our conditional uses without public hearings?
No.
We have to have a public hearing?
Right.
Okay.
Any change to the zoning ordinance will require.
And September is light, but October looks maybe crazy.
Okay, so, to me, we gotta do those conditional uses first, it's long overdue, and then we'll do the subdivision, you know,
The striking of the conditional.
the striking of the conditional uses, and then we'll do subdivision definition and the point system.
Do you wanna wait, do you wanna?
No, I'd say put them on next
Bring them in
agenda.
if we have time to get to the.
Get to the second one, I
subdivision.
would do the strikings first, and then the subdivision second.
Right.
If we have time permitted, hopefully we'll get them both done,
Yeah.
and then get a public hearing scheduled so we can actually get it done,
Right.
you know.
So we're looking at pages what here,
I don't have a packet.
plant material type,
Well, yeah, I mean, we're talking to Mr. Bruss about subdivisions, and there's points there, and we're talking about his CU, and
Yeah, I don't know
and
which
it's an
pages
existing
the-
one, how do we transition it? So, I mean, we got stuff right in front of us on those two items right there.
1 through 42? 40, 43?
Okay, you're reading page numbers, so I'm not sure what you're reading page number.
Yeah, so I had a series of documents, I had a couple of memos and
Well, you know what I can do is Sean and I can go through them and make sure that and I'll get those to you right away.
sure, we just re-email them one more
Right.
time, just make sure you have exactly
Go
what
out
you
and
need.
get them to you, that way you know exactly, and I'll number them by page, even though they're, get some sequence to it. Does that sound good?
Sure. All right.
Okay, any more on item D? Okay, we're on item E. We do have a new member, of course, Commissioner Solani isn't here. So I put on the agenda, do we want to continue to meet on the same day, which is the regular meeting, second Wednesday of every month? I think we got Sean, he has some flexibility, but not a whole lot. If Wednesday evenings could be changed to, I'm not necessarily proposing to change, mind you, but I just wanted to bring it up,
So the second week, I can't do Thursdays,
okay?
so that's the only restriction on the second week. Could it be a different week?
Could it be a different week? First and third Thursdays are regular board meetings. And if our plan commission is on the second week, at least, for example, Sparks, we just recommended to the village board, the village board could take action next week on the Sparks. So it's kind of nice to have it in front of a board meeting, if the board needs to approve something.
Sean, did you say you could not?
I could not do Thursdays, but I could do
On the second week.
On the second week.
Can you do Thursday then the fourth week?
the fourth week, I do have a reserved time. We rarely meet, but it is reserved.
Oh, is the second Wednesday taken up with something?
That is the plan commission.
And
That's where we have it
Commissioner
right
Solani-
now, second
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Commissioner
Second,
Solani has it.
So far. yeah.
so far. So, obviously, you're here, second Wednesday, so we can keep it here, or Tuesday or Monday, right?
Second Tuesday could work.
I prefer Wednesday.
Keep it on Wednesday. How about start time then? We moved the start time to 7 just to get it out of dinner time and gives everybody a better chance to get here and not rush over on
I'd be happy with 7.
7,
Whatever.
whatever. It's a half hour, I suppose,
Sean, how about?
driving back,
The earlier
but
the better for me, but don't change the time on my calendar.
Why are we changing then?
well, we can keep it at 6. I just prefer 7 just because it's such a rush to get here through dinner, that's all. And the people who show up, if it's easier for them.
7's fine.
The goal will still be to be done by 9, okay? But
7's fine.
7's fine? Shall we go with 7?
7.
7?
Will work, yeah.
Okay. So we have consensus for 7. And the second Wednesday, so we're keeping the same day of the month. Okay? Okay, hobby kennels. We have people filtering in.
Karen is here. She's the first one on there.
Karen Lee Forner is first up.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, Sean,
That's
drive
you.
safe.
So why don't you come up and we'll keep, anybody need a break? We'll keep going. Keep going, keep going. Yeah, let's keep
Because
going.
I can just run away. Karen needs more than a break. Am I correct?
We're shooting for 9, right?
Yep.
Oh, it should.
So let's grab your application. Now, if you could state your name and your address for the record.
Karen Lee Fournier, W269 S8915, Danielson Circle, in Guanajuato, Town of Vernon, Village of Vernon.
Okay, we have a hobby kennel license. Technically, what happens is, application is made, neighbors within 300 feet are given actual notice, and then we do open the plan commission meeting for public comments. So we'll hear from the petitioner, and then we'll ask for members of the public, doesn't have to actually be a member, any member of the public can come up and give comments. And then, the plan commission, will need to make a determination whether to grant the license and what conditions about the license, the conditions of the license. So, for the record, this is not a commercial license, this is commercial kennel, this is just personal use dogs, but you have more than 2.
Correct.
And so you need a hobby kennel license. And I understand it's 5 dogs,
Correct.
and they're all the same kind? Or they're
3 are mixes, but they're all basically French Brittany's.
Okay.
3 are papered, 3 are not. Or 3 are papered, 2 are not.
So by papered, you mean with the
Registered full-
registered kennel
full-
club, yeah. And housed indoors, all of them?
Yeah.
Overnight?
Overnight.
Overnight indoors?
Yeah.
And during the day, obviously, they're gonna be outside some points, sometimes, and, we got invisible fences,
Yes.
and they got the collars on.
Are they all trained with the invisible fence?
Yes, mine are the ones I have here. The reason I'm doing this is my friend is dying, and he
Okay.
has 3 of the dogs. I own half of one of his dogs because I bought it for him, and if anything happened to him, I wanted the dog back. He's got 2 10-year-olds that I pay the vet bills on one because she has seizures, and I do take her for periods of time just because he doesn't give her medicine regularly. But one of my dogs goes to training for 3 months at a time, so I kind of take her when my other dog's gone, because I'm not a rule breaker, I keep 2. So he's late stages emphysema, he has nodules on his lungs that his doctor said he wouldn't survive a biopsy. I want him to, he's making a will whenever this virus thing lets him go to the office, but I wanted him to know his dogs are his life. I want him to know that I'll take them.
Okay, so they're not living with you now, but they're,
2,
2 are,
I have 2.
you have 2.
I would like to take the one with seizures full-time,
So that'd be 1 right away.
yes.
And then you'd go up to another 2 eventually as your, if your
Yes.
friend, if and when your friend.
And he takes
Passes
care of my
away.
dogs when we go on vacation. They've grown up together. It's one big family. They all get along and there's no issues.
And your 2 dogs are licensed here.
Yes,
His or license must be up in Lincoln County, all 3 of them,
yes.
so they may have to get new licenses, but big deal.
I could do that tomorrow.
Yeah, I know, that's no big deal. Any written emails from the neighbors or anything?
No,
Is there any member of the public, there's 3 people there.
Or for the next hobby
There
council.
for the next one, okay. All right. Questions?
I read somewhere in here, and I apologize, I wish I could find it, but you indicated that after, how can I say this? Once the dogs are deceased, okay, that you are not planning to replace them?
Oh, no, I
So
have
you're
no
gonna go
intention.
back to 2 or 1 or whatever?
Yeah,
In the letter, I do not intend to board
Yeah, I saw
dogs
that someplace,
or place any of the other dogs
when they pass,
when they
there it
pass.
is.
yes.
That's what I was looking for and I didn't find it.
I'm 61 and I have all I can handle
I'm sorry,
with
say
two,
again.
so I'm 61 and these dogs live 16 years.
Okay,
So there's no way I'm starting over with
When we-
anything else. I would never get rid of any dog I have for
No.
these dogs,
it's tough.
but I don't think I have it in me to start over again.
When we issue kennel license, are we issuing them for particular dogs?
Typically,
Specific,
yes,
in
yeah.
other words,
Just a number,
or just a number? I mean,
Right.
a number.
Yeah, we don't lock them into that specific dog, it's for the number. And if the petitioner says that they triage them out, we would draft the terms of the hobby kennel license based on what the petitioner and plan commission agreed to.
well, yeah, because these are French Brittany's, or at least pretty mixed French Brittany's. And if we just say 5 dogs, next thing we know, we have 5 German Shepherds who bark all the time. You know, so,
Which you could terminate the hobby kennel license
Right.
for,
That gets to be a nuisance.
right.
There's always been,
dogs, number of dogs.
just a number.
Right,
It's correctly characterized.
yeah, I mean.
That's why I asked.
Why?
I mean,
Yeah.
the notice and everything talks about a breed, the application talks about a particular breed, the letter, you've mentioned the particular breed, and that's why I'm asking. Is the limitation, these breeds, okay,
Right.
fine, it's 5, we're okay, so long as it's this breed, as opposed to some other breed,
And in the hobby
which maybe
kennel,
it won't be okay.
in the hobby kennel agreement too, there's, the last page tells why a hobby kennel can be terminated, and barking is one of the reasons.
How long are these dogs gonna be outside during the day? Is it,
Well, I bought a single kennel several years ago, and then when I got a second one, I bought another kennel and doubled it to 10 by 10, thinking they'd be out there, and I've never had them out there a full day.
but when you go up to 5, there's some of them gonna be outside?
I want to be able to put them out there. I have a bark box. I can't stand barking dogs. Lived next to labs in the town of Summit and here when we first
Okay.
moved here. I absolutely can't stand it. So I have a bark box. The older ones do not go in the kennel, but the 2-year-olds probably would.
Okay.
I didn't mean to detract from this hearing, but what is a bark box?
It's a little box, and when they hear a bark, it beeps, and I can hear it, dogs can hear it much better, and they stop barking.
Like a beep or electronic signal or whatever?
It's a
Sound or
beep, yeah, and,
Thank you. That's
yeah.
good.
I wonder if they have this with your husband.
Probably hurt the ears or something. That high pitch probably hurts the ears.
So
We
you-
I'll let
travel in
Wayne
a
know you said
camper
that.
and I take it, cause I don't wanna get kicked out of a campground. And they only bark when we come back to it, you know, like we would have gone.
Yeah.
But I am very sensitive to it, to barking.
Okay, so everybody's saying, yeah, let's get it approved. So I suppose the next question is, what kind of conditions are we putting on there?
I mean,
Right, so-
oh, go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, you were gonna say it, the kennel criteria is already in the ordinance.
Agreement, yeah, and it's in the
Okay.
agreement, and
Barking
the
and so on, yeah.
petitioners are always given the agreement,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that they fully understand, you know, what the, and if there's any special conditions that the plan commission would put on, then we indicate that in the hobby
Yeah.
kennel
Yeah.
license.
Is
And
this
here-
something new, Karen, that we started, this agreement?
Yeah, years ago, it used to be extremely expensive. It had, would have planner review, it would cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And Vernon wanted to be a little more proactive to people that wanted to care for, we have a lot
Okay.
of people that do rescues and people that want to care for animals and license them legally. So that's what these people are doing, is bringing they want to show you, their property, how they're gonna house the dogs, how they're gonna care for the animals. And then when someone has a hobby kennel license, they get a special license and multiple, it's a little bit
Yeah,
cheaper
I've
too.
been involved in a number of them in the past, but I've never had this agreement here.
Yeah, that we started about 2 years ago.
Okay, very good.
And then I modified it after we turned into a village to get rid of the county, no offense,
It was in the bulletin.
you know.
Carl, why don't you keep that, I mean, Karen, could you put one back in my box?
Yeah, I didn't get one, but one of these.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't get one, so I'm just scanning through it.
Oh,
But,
sure.
yeah, but, so we gotta fill in the name of the owner and the address, and it says up to a maximum, so it'd be 5 dogs. And it says, name of breeds, or state any breeds, or state specific names of specific dogs,
If you choose to do that.
if you choose to do that. I personally don't like to say any breeds, because 5 of this breed versus 5 pit bulls is completely different to me.
I love pit bulls.
I know what I would do.
Rottweilers.
Oh, yeah, predictability.
I don't have a problem putting
So-
French Brittany's in
Or French Brittany's, or a mix thereof, or something like that,
there. Yeah, I don't know.
because that's what you want, 5 dogs. So I would propose that, part of the agreement, as part of the agreement to approve. And I think that's the only thing we need to fill in. I would make a motion to approve it for 5 dogs, French Brittany's, or a mixed French Brittany breed.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Here, I'll get everything ready and I'll give you a buzz.
Thank you.
And you'll pay your fees or whatever
Yep.
it's, right.
Yep.
Okay, next one up. Mr. Langley? Langiel. So if you could please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mike Langiel. My address is South 66 West 24370 Skyline Avenue, Vernon. I'm here with my wife Eileen Langiel and her sister, my sister-in-law Terry, who is the owner of the dogs. So, would you like me to describe?
Well, let me just point out one thing I noticed, and it was referenced in our attorney comments. The public notice that went out to the neighbors within 300 feet says the request would allow for 5 dogs, but then it goes on to say the breed of the dogs are as follows: 6 mixed. And so there's a discrepancy between the 5 and the 6. Your request is for 6 total, right? You have
6
2
total,
and you're
yes.
getting 4 new ones.
We have 2,
2,
and we're getting 6 for a total of 8.
you have a total of 8.
Oh.
Yes.
All right, so I was a little unclear when I read your description, and so now I'm, the point on the notice I was going to make is, so we notified everybody, there's 5 dogs, and then we go on to say 6 dogs. And if you were coming in and said, no, I'm coming in for 6, I would say, well, there's a technical problem, but maybe we could proceed. But now if it's going to be a total of 8 dogs, I can't speak for your neighbors, but a neighbor who gets 6 dogs may be okay, 8 dogs is not. I don't know, and then we get into questions about, well, it's not noticed properly, and the village here could be, and your license could be challenged, and I don't want your license to be subject to any sort of legal challenge whatsoever. I mean, on behalf for yourself or on behalf of Vernon. So now I'm getting a little more concerned about the, the notice and the 8 dogs.
Here, should this be noticed when we talk
don't know, I mean,
Talked about 6, now we're talking about 8.
I mean, we did a cell tower where we actually moved the tower and changed the road, and there was no notice done on a huge cell tower. And now there's a major issue on a couple dogs that all the neighbors were given all the information.
But I'm fine.
Or
Yeah,
6.
yeah,
I would
but
say
no, they
5
got
or
the
6.
letter too. You know, so I mean, this is a 10-acre,
It's now gonna be 8.
I mean, I understand notification, but I don't understand where we can move a tower in a location that's nothing, and then there's a couple extra dogs.
Could I ask a question, with your permission, about the notice? Did it include the letter that I had given here
Yes,
as well?
because one of your neighbors that did comment on, he wanted to know if there, not that he has any, I mean, I'll read it into the record also, because he was very, very supportive of your request. But he asked me, is there any limit on a hobby kennel? And I couldn't find it. You know, a number of dogs on a hobby kennel,
I think that's right, our ordinance does not provide for
right? And I mean,
a limit, other than us saying, nope, we're not gonna approve anything.
and the difference between a hobby and a commercial is there's selling and breeding, and none of that's done on a hobby kennel license.
Yeah. When they, did they receive a copy of the license, and did they get the letter I attached also?
Yeah, they got your notice, yeah, the information that I had when I did the, yes.
In my letter, I had stated that, that it was for, or on the notice here, it was for 6 dogs. And, then I said, there was a sentence that said, please note that in addition to the 6 dogs covered by the requested hobby license, we have 2 dogs that are licensed through the village of Vernon.
Okay.
And in fact, I had also, when the notice went out, there was some question on the 5, and I remember I had emailed you, just making sure that clarification that it was 6 and not 5, so it was here in the documentation that they had received, that it would be a total of 8 dogs.
And it is on 10 acres. It's not like a residential lot.
What type of dogs are these?
These, will be smaller dogs, Terry has
80% of the average weight is 25
has
pounds.
the information on the dogs, they're smaller dogs, and
Dan, you wanna see it?
Are they purebred, or are they?
No, they're all mixes, I think. Well, one is a purebred cocker spaniel, but
Okay.
five of the dogs are all 20 or 21 pounds. One is 63 pounds.
So you don't do any breeding of these
No,
dogs?
no, they're all, in fact, they're all spayed or neutered.
Okay, well, that's
There
Yeah,
are 5
it's
are
right here.
important to know.
females, one is a male.
All vaccinated
There's
for
gonna be
rabies,
no breeding or anything. These are all rescues.
all
One
have
out of
proper
the nest.
certificates from veterinarians.
All rescue dogs.
Yeah, I have pictures. They're back
So they may be
there.
coming and going, at
well, here is the intent. Here's what, our plan is, so you know. We have a 24 by 48 outbuilding, a garage and shop, and I was gonna section off inside a 16 by 16 where they would be inside with, a little doggy door, and then outside, somewhere 16 by either 16 or 20, a wooden, fenced-in, exercise area. They would be in there all the time, except if they were out, they'd be on a leash and exercise there, and we have a little fencing area in front of the house there, but they always would be under control. We have 10 acres, we have, to the road in front, it's about 700 feet, and houses on the north end, you'd probably have to go darn near the town line. And then we have neighbors on each side. One house would be 300 or more feet, and the other one that's closer would be maybe 150, 200 feet, less than 150 feet away.
being rescue dogs, meaning that you rescued them all? They're not out for adoption or anything, or that? Okay.
The overall intent is that this is a transitional time. Our goal is, when Terry finds a place, then she'll move on with them. And our hope is that it'll be around November, December when that would happen, but nothing is guaranteed, so I didn't want to say that we have a hard date on that, but it's not in our view, not a permanent situation, it's a transition. And so the dogs would be under control. We'd have an inside facility and then an outside wooded area for them to exercise. That's what we have, and we thought it would be wise to get the license.
I have pictures and vaccination records.
Yeah, you can pass this.
There, so some of them are.
Just so you're aware,
Some of them
the,
are stapled, some are not. But
the
they're-
hobby kennel is for all your dogs. It's not 2 + 6, it's for
She's
8.
basically gonna be in the house.
It has to be, yeah,
Yeah,
because,
Yes.
yeah.
because you have 8 dogs on your property.
Yes,
They're all
I-
part of the hobby kennel.
That one-
Right.
So that's
that
why I
would-
found it confusing, because you said, well, I'm getting 6 dogs, but I have 2 of my own, and this is for the 6. It's like, no, you're requesting for the 8.
Understood.
Yeah.
8 is the maximum. Trust me, no more dogs
She
than that.
can't do this here.
Oh, wait a minute, wait, no side, hey,
Excuse me.
I thought you were, no sidebars. I thought you were just passing your
She's
pictures
explaining, yeah,
down.
but I don't, I
You're
can just
not,
take a
if you're gonna
picture.
explain
Just-
something, you need to be
Excuse
the-
us.
up at the microphone and talk to everyone at the same time. I thought you were just giving the pictures over, sorry.
I was.
So, Mr. President, if the plan commission's even considering it, you would draft this at the, with the understanding that when the 6, it would be I don't know if you'd even grant a temporary, but it's the understanding then when your sister-in-law or sister moves, that the 6 dogs would go with her.
Yes, that's the intent, that this is temporary, not permanent. We read the language that you had provided, the stipulations, et cetera, for the hobby, and the commission obviously retains control at any time to revoke any or all provisions at its own will.
Right.
So, I mean, and I wanted to come forward in good faith and let you know what our best thinking was on this, but also knowing how it is with moving, it's not as if we can guarantee hard and fast that November 1st rolls and then we'll have a place. But that is the intent, is to make this short-term and to move the dogs on to their permanent home. That's our intent. But again, I didn't think in good faith I could say we can guarantee that would happen, but.
But it's going to be temporary and moving on what's happening. These are not your dogs, your sister's moving in, are you moving
She's
in?
right there.
Terry will be moving in with us, and
Okay.
then when she,
Get
she's
the-
moving in, she was living in Mexico, she's moving here, when she finds a permanent place, she'll be moving on with her dogs to that, and we're just transitioning, for a short.
So we could make it condition upon Terry being resident at your home.
Yes, that would be fair.
Yep.
And Terry, you have a last name of
Gressel, G-R-E-S-L.
Gresl.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have any issues with the dogs being vaccinated in Mexico?
Well, that she would provide, I'm sure she's got her information here.
I could let her come up and speak to those issues if you wanted to.
Okay.
Yep.
Sure, yes.
Yeah, the pictures are with also their full vaccination records, and those are all up to date.
Because we can't issue a license unless that's provided.
Yeah. They,
Right.
they couldn't get into the country without complete vaccination records
So,
and parasite.
okay, so that's what I was really asking is, our dog licenses and stuff, they're at a local veterinarian, no big deal. When they move from Illinois, no big deal, but you're moving from Mexico,
Yeah,
a different country.
right.
And whether, I don't know what the rules are.
Well, they can't get in the United States unless they have proper vaccination.
They have,
And this
they
would
have
be,
to have their full vaccinations to get in.
Yeah, I see them, but whether the United States accepts, or Vernon accepts, or Waukesha County accepts vaccinations done outside the country or not, that's my question.
oh, I'm gonna
Yeah, but I suppose if they can get into the country, the answer
It has to
should be
be
yes.
accepted in
They
order.
can't come
Get
into
in
the
here in
country
the
without
first
being
place.
vaccinated in the United States
In Mexico, they have to have the vaccinations before they arrive.
before you can
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah, they look at them right when you.
And those records are shown, yeah. Can't get in the United United States without being vaccinated.
And then what we would do it just as a safety is, you know, Terry, I'd make copies of this and then get it into the county just to double check.
And you'd buy licenses form here.
Right, right.
you know.
I have them electronically too, if that'd be easier
that'd be
to
great.
send
That'd be
them.
perfect, Terry.
These I just scanned and copied.
And they're microchipped, all of them?
All of my microchipped, yeah.
Okay, so, the technical issue, well, so you're here now, the dog's here today?
One, the top, I don't know, the top, the little 13, no, those aren't the ones, but there's one, she's very small, she's here with me, I brought her with me in June when I arrived.
And the other ones are
And the other
arriving?
5 are coming, they're at a kennel in Mexico City, so
They need
they're
to
just
be
gonna be shipped,
shipped and imported in with
yeah.
their papers.
Is that a quarantine or something?
No, there's no quarantine for dogs coming from Mexico,
Okay.
no.
And when do you expect them to arrive?
Well, we needed to wait till we had approval to actually have a place for them, and now I can go, if it's approved, go and make the final arrangements, because they have to have a certificate of health issued by a veterinarian within 10 days of the date that they actually travel. So I couldn't have that done until I know when they're gonna travel and that we have a place for them. So we're hoping by the end of the month, or the first week in September.
The first weekend. Because there's a technical issue with the notice, okay? So we're gonna have to decide that, but as long as we're here and talking about it, we can also decide, well, is this out of the question, or do we just need to fix the technical issue with the notice or overlook it? And are we gonna approve this, and if so, what are the conditions? So we might as well, to me, well, it's 9 o'clock, but we can take, if we have a couple of minutes here, talk about the conditions. And it seems to me the conditions would be, first of all, it's 8 dogs, and we'll have to get to me, I would like to see the breeds in here, or
I thought it was
close.
maybe in the application, but I
But
can
your,
tell you.
sir, your dogs, your 2 breeds are what?
One is a lab mix, and the other one is a border collie mix.
Okay, and then your dog breeds are listed in here, whatever they.
Yeah, there, 2 or 3 of them are poodle mixes. One is, I think he's a purebred Cocker Spaniel. One is, I'm not sure, but I think she is like a German Shorthair Pointer, black German Shorthair Pointer. And the other one is some mix of, I'm really not sure, she was my neighbor's dog. She's like small hound, and she's probably a mix of Chihuahua and some other things.
How about if we just call it a small breed mix, how's that?
Yeah, that's good, that's probably accurate.
Like in the application.
Is that what it says?
Yep.
Okay. So we've got 1 lab, we've got 8 dogs, 1 lab mix, 1 border collie mix, 3 poodle mix,
Yeah,
6 small breed.
yeah, 3 poodle,
1 German
Cocker
short-haired mix, and then 3,
Cocker Spaniel.
1, 2, 5, oh, the
some
cocker
kind of
spaniel.
small breed mix.
And
1
Chihuahua.
small breed
And
and
a
1
Cocker
cocker,
Spaniel.
cocker spaniel.
I think he's purebred, yeah.
Okay, so there's 8 dogs, name of breeds, type of breeds, we just did that. And so, name of the owner, so we'd have to put,
Terry. Mike
we'd
and
have to put Mike, and we'd have, Mike and
And-
Eileen. And we'd have to put
Terry
Terry,
as a 6.
for the 6. And we'd have to make it conditioned on Terry living at this property, the property address.
Do you live at this address?
I'm staying with my other sister right now in Oconomowoc, but I'll be moving to this address.
You plan to move?
When the dogs come.
Oh, all right.
So it's conditioned on Terry Greisel, is that how I said it?
Gressel,
Gress-
Gresl.
Residing,
In Vernon.
residing at the address.
Yep.
Right.
And then would you limit it to 6 dogs? I mean, I know November isn't a hard fast, but, I mean, it would be with the understanding that there'd be some type of sunset, correct?
Right,
Well,
correct, as soon as I,
My view is that, our good faith effort is to make it November first, and we have no problems with that being part of a stipulation. But, also, that if we're running into any, backups, then we'd wanna come in here again sometime in October to see if we can get it, you know,
That seems silly.
and I don't know if that, I don't know what the purpose of, our intent is to move on with this, but I'm concerned about getting caught up in a spot where it's November first and we're still searching.
Right.
Sorry, sir, could you move on? What do you mean by that? We wanna move on
When-
with this.
In the
Yeah,
sense
oh, yeah,
of,
that's what he said.
What's that?
He doesn't say that.
we wanna move on and have the dogs move to a new location, but if we're unable to, do that in what we imagine to be our temporary,
Yeah.
term, I mean, I don't wanna get boxed into a place all of a sudden and we don't know where we're going. And if we're fulfilling all of the requirements that are stipulated here, and, you know, we're taking care of our business, and the dogs are not a nuisance and everything else, you know, I'm just trying not to make this November first that
So
hard.
if we conditioned it upon a year from now,
A year would just let us breathe easier,
Okay, that's-
but,
Yeah.
but our intent is less than that, but a year would just
yeah.
remove a headache from anybody, and you still have
I do
the
have one
hammer
public
of
comment.
nuisance, right?
Right.
You have that, you
Yep.
can, you can do that anytime you want.
Well, yeah, the kennel criteria covers that, but yeah, Dan's got a good idea there.
When do these licenses normally, they do get renewed? Or is
Hobby
it
kennel
good for
license annually.
Annually,
Okay.
so they're
The hobby kennel license renew in January, right.
in January.
So we would prorate, I
Yeah.
mean, this license.
So, if we say nothing, other than Terry needs to continue to reside there, you'd have to come in for renewal, or they'd just ask
In
for a
January.
renewal for January anyway. So
They
you
don't
have
have
it
to
till
read
the
it
end of
here,
this
do
year,
they?
you only
No,
need it till
no.
No,
November.
didn't think so.
Right.
You have it till the end of this year.
We'd have to come in, right, proactively to get the renewal,
To get the renewal anyway.
right, and
So-
you still
so-
have the ability to
Just contact the
call
clerk.
it in at any time if there's a problem.
Yeah,
Right,
just
so-
contact the clerk, you don't have to
Yes.
come in.
Right, so so I was thinking, well, to your point, do you wanna get tied into November, a hard date? Like, we
Right.
could write a condition, this license expires not December 31st, whatever date we'd wanna put in there. But if we just let it expire December 31st.
Right,
So write it
silently,
in others,
And
don't
if
say
need be, he
anything
could renew it for another year.
here, if he needed to,
right,
right? So there wouldn't be any,
Yeah,
we wouldn't have to put a special condition on it,
For sunsetting,
Probably.
right.
yeah.
and you still, again, have the hammer that if something, is a nuisance or there are problems, you have the power to revoke at any time.
Right, and if Terry moves out, which is the plan,
The
I take
plan,
it,
right.
with her dogs,
Yeah. And then it would cease.
then it
the
would
day-
cease,
And we'd give you notice.
Right.
There you go.
right. And then you wouldn't renew it either, because assumingly if it stays on schedule here, November, December,
Right,
or October, November, whenever it is.
yes.
sounds good.
Right. Okay, so now, that's good. The technical issue is the notice.
I don't know what to do with that. And no offense to you, sir, it just, the number that went out to the neighbors.
Well, my point was that I
They got
thought
the
if the
letter.
whole packet went out to them, then included in that was the fact that the cover letter said that there were for 6 dogs, and we had 2 additional dogs,
That's in the
for a
letter,
total of
yeah.
8.
That's right.
So they had that notice. So part of it came out saying 6,
Right.
but the other part, I made a point of clearly saying what we already had on site, so, and
Yeah.
they had access to that.
If the
That's in line.
neighbors, if everybody got that mailing with that letter in it, I see no problem with it.
And I did get a letter from one of the neighbors that's directly across the street, from Mike and Eileen, and they've been there for 23 years, and it's from Ed and Linda Moline. They said that they've known, Mike and Eileen for over 23 years, and they've been good, responsible neighbors. They've owned dogs for many years without any complaints. I support and ask approval of the request from the Plan Commission on behalf of what sounds like a very humanitarian effort on behalf of these dogs. I applaud them for their effort to participate in the effort to support these animals. If a variance is required for this approval of this request, I ask the variance be granted in this case. Respectfully, Ed and Linda Moline, and as I stated, they live directly across from Mike. And I,
Over here. Right there, right there.
yes.
Okay, so, I mean, the notice of the public hearing, 5 and 6, but if they did, I mean, the counter to that, of course, is what was just pointed out. If they got the letter, I read the letter as 8 dogs, so then when I read the notice, I'm like, hey, what's going on, you know? That's why I raised it, and the attorney said, hey, well, what is going on, you know?
Right.
Right, so, the concern I had was, did the neighbors know that there was gonna be 8 dogs? I mean, you were a little confused the way it was, I mean, it wasn't written in the, you know, this hobby kennel license is for 8 dogs, cause you were thinking it was 6, cause you already have 2, but it's really for 8, so.
But, I was glad I put that last sentence in.
Yeah,
And again,
right.
what I wanna do is be as, transparent and good faith, let you know what the whole deal was. We have no chickens or anything else.
So it's not perfect, I mean, it's not perfect, the notice wasn't, this notice wasn't perfect, the application wasn't perfect, the letter though, I concluded there was 8 dogs, so there's that. I mean,
Can I make a motion
Yes.
yeah, you can make a motion,
to approve,
subject to what, all the
subject to the.
For 8 dogs.
For 8 dogs,
dogs,
based on,
all of this.
yes.
If you wanna
I'm not gonna go through this one. Consistent with, Village of Vernon hobby kennel agreement
as, with the conditions as discussed,
and with the conditions as discussed.
right, which I will list them off, which is 8 dogs, and listing off the mixes as we, if I need to repeat them, I'll repeat them. And, it's conditioned on Terry residing at the address.
Yes.
That's what I have.
That's a
As per
okay.
applicant's original letter.
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very
unanimously.
much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Okay, we're on the minutes.
Terry, do you wanna take this, and if you could send me a PDF, that would be great.
I gotta keep going. Yeah, oh, you gotta find them? Okay, so we have, you know, and I know we haven't, you know, you weren't, Jamie, you were new, so you can abstain because you weren't here at these meetings. But we haven't really met since March 11th. I mean, we've met, but it's special meetings for Helverson House, the cell tower. I mean, we've met for hours upon hours upon hours. And we're finally getting to our regular meeting, so we're looking back to Town Board and Plan Commission, March 11th. And then we had a special meeting on May 14th.
Make a motion to approve the March 11th minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
My only question is, we did approve these at our village board meeting, are they the same? The
Yep,
same,
with your
with some changes?
With the changes that were approved by the town board,
Town board, okay.
the village board.
Village
Porter,
board.
you sit down first.
Uh-uh,
You did what you need to do.
wait a minute, we were a
We were
town.
town back then,
We were a
that's
town
true.
back then, so those are waived.
Yeah.
We don't wanna have a vote on the calling the question.
I wanna see
Any
the
further
jar.
discussion?
I wanna see the jar with the quarters in it.
I spent it all.
On cleaning products.
The telecommunications tower is a done deal then, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, it is, okay.
Until someone
Well,
sues us.
It
Um,
may come back to haunt us.
Call the
but,
question.
Yeah, can we, so,
litigation.
yeah, can we have a vote on March 11th? It was made and seconded to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Make a
Uh,
motion to approve
approve
the
May
May 14th minutes.
And is there a second?
Second.
And these changes were also made. These are the same as approved. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Make a motion to approve, sorry. Withdraw that. Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Well, whatever the right time is. 9:08.